Chapter 2902. You're really an acquaintance 3. It's not very comfortable, Uncle Long said weakly. Then he followed the others and moved towards an area. If the situation didn't look right, he had to run away. Otherwise, whoever was blocked by the mistress of the dark world would be in trouble. I have medicine here. You'll be fine after taking it. Hearing Uncle Long's words, the demon took out a bottle of pills and waved it in front of everyone. Looking at the familiar jade bottle, Uncle Long and the others were a little confused. Wasn't this the pill that Schwer produced during the process of refining the Chaos Divine pill? What did the Dark Mistress mean by this? He wanted to use them to test medicine? Thinking of this possibility, everyone shivered. The mistress of the dark world was indeed in a bad mood today. In fact, it wasn't that the demon was in a bad mood. It was just that his divine sense had accidentally scanned Uncle Long and the others and found that they were playing tricks, so he came over to teach them a little lesson. But seeing that Uncle Long and the others were really afraid, he didn't have the mood to continue teasing them. After a long time, Uncle Long said carefully, "It's not serious enough to require medicine. We're just homesick." "What's wrong? Are you homesick? Do you need me to send you back?" Seeing that Uncle Long and the others were silent, the demon continued to ask, "Is this true?" Uncle Long and the others could not believe that such a good thing would happen. Hence, they did not say anything and looked at the evildoer with anticipation. "If you really want to go back, I can send you back." The demon saw that his credibility was being questioned and repeated. Seeing that the demon was serious, Uncle Long nodded. "I want to go home. What about you guys?" After seeing Uncle Long nod in satisfaction, the demon asked the others, "Let's go back too." The rest of the people said in unison, "Then go back." The demon said in a good mood. Then he raised his hand, and the chaos world opened up like a giant beast with its mouth open, revealing a thin and long hole. Before Uncle Long and the others could react, they were all picked up by the demon and thrown into the huge beast's mouth. After cleaning up Uncle Long and the others, the demon returned to the spare weapon refining room in a good mood. Now, other than the few professionals who were assisting Schwerer, there were quite a few less third wheels. Seeing the demon return, Lung Ruoxue, who had finished her preparations for weapon refinement, asked in surprise, "Evildoer, where have you been?" "I'll send Uncle Long and the others off. They were homesick, so I sent them back." The demon calmly explained and then sat down again. "Oh, they've been out for long enough this time, so it's good to send them back first." Lung Ruoxue didn't suspect him. She then turned her attention back to the weapon furnace. However, the few professionals who were present had heard the conversation between the two of them, and received a faint look of disdain from the demon. They automatically lowered their presence to avoid angering this big shot who was in a bad mood. The demon was quite satisfied with their tactfulness. At the same time, Uncle Long and the others didn't feel good. From the moment they were thrown into the spatial tunnel, they had been feeling dizzy. No matter how much strength they used, they could not control the flow of their bodies. It was as if their bodies were being controlled by someone, and they were constantly being shot out like cannonballs. When they finally managed to catch their breath, they began to fall down again. Fiend City in the Divine Realm. As usual, Mu Li and the others were sitting in the garden and doing nothing. At this moment, the sky suddenly changed color and turned pitch black. Seeing this scene, Minga seemed to have some feelings and said, "This scene is so familiar." "Which part is familiar?" Mu Li blinked and asked curiously. It was probably going to rain. Sure enough, as soon as he thought of this, the sky began to rain. No, it was the servants. At the same time, it was accompanied by a pressure that they were quite familiar with. Needless to say, this was definitely his lord's doing. After sensing the pressure, Ming Ji immediately understood. As for those who fell directly into the pool, he was speechless and did not know what to say. Was this his lord's bad taste? Of all places, these people had to fall into the pool that the city lord of Muley City had once fallen into. This time, the city lord of Muley City had a brother in trouble. Ming Ji, who was watching, was very happy to fill in the blanks. Uncle Long and the others who fell into the water were extremely depressed. They climbed up to the shore in a sorry state. After drying their clothes, they pretended to be calm and looked at Mu Li and the others. "We're back. Uncle Long said awkwardly. It was really embarrassing to return home like this. Thanks, Wu. Without a doubt, the mistress of the dark world did it on purpose. Only you guys came back? Mingji tactfully asked with a smile as she searched for Lung Ruoxia's figure. Lung Ruoxia didn't return? Or behind? Yup. He looked at the lineup behind him. Even the reverent god had returned, and there were also the Qilins from the Qilin clan. As the venomous snake clan and the golden bee clan had been staying in Green Vessel's territory, they were spared. They were the only disgraceful ones. The future Netherworld Empress didn't come back? Muli couldn't help but ask when he heard Uncle Long's words. No, Schwerer is still refining. She won't be back in a short time. Uncle Long said honestly. I see. Muli didn't know what to say. It seemed that the matter of the little phoenix had to continue waiting. What's the matter? Are you looking for Schwerer? Upon hearing Muli's tone, Uncle Long realized that something big had happened in Demon City. A little, but it's not a big deal. Muli saw that Uncle Long had suddenly become nervous and quickly said. Then he explained what had happened to Uncle Long and the others. After hearing this, Uncle Long and the others all frowned. They still had some impression of the little phoenix called Qing. Wasn't she the one who had come to Demon City to challenge Schwerer? However, he did not know who the old ancestor she was talking about was. With a trace of doubt, Uncle Long and the others decided to meet the little phoenix in person. Seeing this, Muli transmitted a message to the White Tiger First Elder, asking him to bring Qing up. During this period, under the White Tiger Great Elder's advice, Qing had calmed down a lot. Perhaps it was because she had completely seen through the situation in front of her, so she was no longer so angry. But at the same time, she had also become silent, sometimes not saying a word for several days. When the White Tiger Great Elder reported this matter to them, Muli and the others were well aware that the little phoenix's situation could not be considered to be silent. It was just a self-exile after being powerless. He brought Qing to the Lung family's main residence. The White Tiger Great Elder saw Uncle Long with a single glance, and immediately said in surprise, "Master is back?" Hearing the words of the White Tiger Great Elder, Qing also raised her head, her beautiful phoenix eyes shining with a glimmer of light. Schwerer didn't come back, only the few of us came back. Uncle Long's mouth twitched when he heard the old White Tiger call Schwerer master. This old man is really sticking to Schwerer. It really knew how to hug someone's thigh. When can she come back? Qing asked anxiously. I don't know. Maybe 50 years, maybe 100 years. Uncle Long replied kindly. Why do you need so long? What the hell is she doing? Hearing that there was no hope, Qing broke down again and couldn't help but shout. Uncle Long heard the questioning and said unhappily. To cultivate, of course. Do you need that long to cultivate? Where did he go to cultivate? Qing couldn't help asking. When you phoenix kind start cultivating, it will take at least 1,000 years, if not 10,000 years. Why is 100 years considered long? Also, where Schwerer goes to cultivate is a secret. I can't tell you. Uncle Long said coldly. I didn't mean it that way. It's just that I have an urgent matter that I need to look for Lung Ruoxia. Qing could hear Uncle Long's dissatisfaction with her, so she quickly changed her tone and said gently. Now, she was the one who could be saved. As the White Tiger First Elder had said, it was necessary for her to lower her stance. You'll have to wait if you want to find Schwerer. Uncle Long said calmly. We can't wait, we really can't wait. Human lives are at stake. Qing sobbed. Don't worry, it's only 100 years. Isn't your ancestor a reverent god? You won't die. Uncle Long narrowed his eyes and remained calm. He truly felt that nothing was more important than Schweer's cultivation at the moment. Furthermore, even if the mistress of the dark world knew about this, she would most likely not tell Schwerer. As for them, they had lost contact with the land of chaos ever since they returned to Demon City. Therefore, this little phoenix was destined to be disappointed. When Qing heard Uncle Long's words, she immediately burst into tears. As she cried and cried, she knelt in front of Uncle Long and the others and begged. I beg you, please save my family's old ancestor. We really can't wait 100 years. The city lord of the abandoned land will torture the 3 ancestors. Qing felt that without Lung Ruoxue, if these people were willing to help her, she would definitely be able to save her old ancestor. The reason why she didn't kneel and beg Mu Li and the others was because she didn't know their strength. However, Uncle Long and the others were different. These people were legendary existences in the divine world. Qing had heard of their names long ago, so she was naturally convinced of their strength. Now, she could only ask them for help. Hearing Qing cry so sadly, Uncle Long felt a little embarrassed. Just as the city lord of Muley City had said, they were not clear about the strength of the City of Desolation. If they attacked rashly, everything would be unpredictable. What if they got themselves into trouble? To them, the most important enemy was that bitch Wuchen. The City of Desolation was Wuchen's territory, so Uncle Long and the others really didn't dare to take the risk. Most importantly, if this was a trap, they would only be courting death if they went in the absence of Shui and Song. Uncle Long didn't dare to act rashly. Seeing that Qing was crying again, he gradually became irritated and shouted helplessly, "Little Phoenix, can you solve the problem by crying? By the way, what are the names of your 3 ancestors?" "My ancestor is the 6th elder of the Phoenix clan. The other 2 are called Feng Miao and Feng Hua." Qing wiped her tears and obediently replied. They were really acquaintances. Uncle Long and the others couldn't help but think to themselves. Chapter 2903. The City of Abandoned Ruins Tradition 1. However, he was not willing to give this little Phoenix too much hope. He said, "Little Phoenix, we need to discuss the matter you mentioned. You can go back first." Seeing that she had been chased out just like that, Qing disappointment could not help but be displayed on her face. Soon after, she was unwillingly pulled away by the White Tiger Great Elder. Before she left, Qing kept looking at Uncle Long and the others with a resentful look. Glancing at Qing back, Mu Li said unhappily, "This little Phoenix treats you and us 2 completely different ways." Poochie. Hearing Mu Li's complaints, Uncle Long and the others couldn't help but laugh. They had heard the specific situation from Mu Li, but they couldn't help it. "What are you going to do about this?" Ice Spirit asked. "What do you think, Senior Ice Soul?" Uncle Long asked instead of answering. "I know the City of Abandoned Ruins, but it's not a good place. With our current strength, we can go there and retreat safely, but it will be difficult to save people." Ice Spirit's words were very subtle. What he didn't say was that he heard that there was a fog clone guarding the place. The fog ice clone had about 1/3 of the strength of the fog ice, which was almost equivalent to an ordinary reverent god level. It didn't seem to be very powerful, but it was very difficult to deal with. Unless Shui was there, it would be a waste of time for them to go there. On the contrary, they might even alarm the fog ice. "Then what should we do?" Dongfeng Yu said worriedly. "Why? Are those 3 old phoenixes very close to Shui?" Ice Soul asked curiously after seeing Dongfeng Yu's expression. As one of the 4 supreme divinity kings, Ice Spirit would definitely help if there was a chance. However, it would be very difficult to save them with just the few of them. They might even get themselves into trouble. As such, he was not willing to help. After all, he still had his son and his tribesmen. He really did not have the extra energy to care about the affairs of the other beast clans. However, judging from Dongfeng Yu's expression, it was obvious that there was a secret he didn't know about. As such, he had to be careful. "Feng Miao and Feng Hua are Shui's beastie," Dongfeng Yu said honestly. As soon as he said that, Bing Pu Mu Li and the others who didn't know the truth couldn't help but widen their eyes. They couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Shui is so powerful. When did he manage to recruit the Phoenix clan's old ancestor? As such, they had no choice but to take it seriously. It looks like we can't just ignore this. After a long time, Mu Li said, "Then, let's send a few people to explore the deserted land first. We can't be in a rush to save people." Ice Soul said after thinking for a while. Hearing this, everyone nodded their heads. However, they all had a tacit understanding not to tell Qing little Phoenix about this matter, in case the other party's expectations were too high. In the end, the result of the discussion was that Ice Soul, Uncle Dragon, Dongfeng Yu, and Ming Ji would disguise themselves and head to the City of Forsaken Desolation. while the rest of the people would stay in Demon City. After the 4 supreme gods set off, they began to take turns to teleport. However, the City of Desolation was quite far from the City of Demons. Even with teleportation, they still had not reached their destination after 3 months. Moreover, the further they went, the more desolate it became. There's a city of abandoned ruins here? Minga looked around. The ground was covered in yellow sand, and there was no green or human figure to be seen. It was even more desolate than the 9 Nether prison. The only thing that was better than the 9 Nether prison was that the sky was blue. We have to cross this desert. Ice Spirit told the truth and then said, "Be careful, there are many powerful beasts in this desert." Thanks, the beastie he was referring to was of course the earth dragon, the scorpion, the spider, and so on. However, as an outsider, Minga was not aware of this. He was even eager to catch one and ask Lung Ruoxia to help him tame it. Hearing his thoughts, the other 3 couldn't help but have strange expressions. Uncle Long even patted his shoulder and said, "Good idea. I support you." Thank you for your support." Minga replied in a daze. Looking at the expressions of the 3, he clearly felt that something was wrong. How could this be? But at this time, no one could answer his question. After Ice Spirit released her aura, she said to the 3 of them, "Let's go. Teleport over there." After saying that, he used his divine power to cover the 3 of them, and prepared to fly them over the desert. After floating in the air, Minga searched around with her eyes in boredom. Suddenly, he felt that a piece of desert not far away seemed to be moving. He told Ice Spirit and the other 2 about this, but they didn't even bat an eye. At that moment, a huge, sticky, and disgusting thing suddenly popped out of the moving desert. It looked like a snake, but it was not. He didn't know if it was the head or the tail, and he was so scared that his face turned pale. "You bastard! What was this? He's so ugly." He turned to look at Ice Spirit and the other 2, but they were very calm. Uncle Long was ready to attack. What's this?" Mingji asked carefully as she trembled and resisted the nauseating feeling. "The beast you want to contract is called Earth Dragon." Dongfangyu replied calmly. Minga felt her stomach turn sour. If all the beasts here were like this, he would rather not have them. "Your sister. What kind of beastie was this?" It was even more disgusting than the 9 Nether prison. At this moment, Minga deeply felt that even the evil spirits of the 9 Nether prison were 100 times stronger than this disgusting beast. This thing really affected the appetite of others. In the blink of an eye, while Minga was still feeling nauseated, Uncle Dragon and Dongfangyu had joined forces and quickly eliminated the Earth Dragon. After the Earth Dragon was smashed into pieces, it sprayed out a dark yellow liquid, making Minga unable to help but vomit. When he was done vomiting, his little face was even paler. Uncle Long patted him on the shoulder and said helplessly, "Minga, you're still lacking in training. And if we encounter another Earth Dragon later, they'll let you take action." Ice Soul nodded, but he was laughing inside. Back then, he had deliberately not explained in detail the beasts that would be found in the desert. Now he had indeed seen such an interesting scene. "Woo! Spare me, please?" Upon hearing this, Minga burst into tears. He had seen a lot of disgusting things in the 9 Nether prison, but he felt that they were nothing compared to the Earth Dragon that Ice Soul was talking about. In fact, the reason why the visual impact just now was so great was mainly because he was not mentally prepared. If Ice Soul and the other 2 had told him about this in advance, he might not have ended up like this. But now, the powerful Minga was undeniably frightened by the Earth Dragon. Furthermore, this disgusting Earth Dragon might become a nightmare that would accompany him for a long time. Ha. Looking at Ming Ji's timid appearance, Uncle Long and the other 2 laughed out loud without any sympathy, which only made Ming Ji's eyes look even more resentful. Chapter 2904. The City of Abandoned Ruins Tradition 2. However, his pitiful appearance was completely ignored by the other 3. Then Ice Spirit continued on her way. Logically speaking, with his pressure, most of the beasts in the desert would not dare to come out and loiter around. However, there would always be those who were blind, such as the Earth Dragon. Of course, the Earth Dragons did not do this on purpose. They could ignore the ice spirit's pressure because no matter how strong they were, they could not develop intelligence. They were cold-blooded animals, so the pressure from the ice spirit's bloodline had little effect on them. Moreover, the earth dragons in this desert were not very strong, so it was not difficult for Uncle Dragon and Dongfang Yu to eliminate them. However, the earth dragons that appeared from time to time had pushed Ming's mental endurance to the limit. By the time they crossed the desert, there was not a trace of blood on Ming's face. As soon as he landed on the ground, he ran to a giant tree, hugged it, and vomited again. Seeing him like this, Uncle Long was really sympathetic. Originally, they had wanted to give Ming Ji a few earth dragons to let him have a good time. But later, when they saw that he vomited until his limbs were weak, they could not bear to bully him anymore. But now, all they could do was sympathize with Ming Ji. When Minga was done vomiting and sat down on the root, Uncle Long took the initiative to sit beside him. He patted his shoulder and asked helplessly, "Minga, you're from the Nether prison. What haven't you seen? You're so scared of just a few earth dragons. I'm so disappointed. That thing is too disgusting." Minga said, trembling. "You evil ghosts of the Nether prison are even more disgusting. I wasn't like you at that time." Uncle Long reminded, "I'm used to evil spirits. I don't find them disgusting." Ming Ji said honestly. More importantly, those evil spirits did not dare to get close to him. However, the earth dragons in the desert were different. These earth dragons were not afraid of him at all. Some of them even moved closer to him. How could he not be afraid? All right. The species of the two worlds are different, you just have to get used to it. Uncle Long consoled her. Then he turned to Ice Soul and Dongfang Yu. "Let's rest here for the night." The two of them nodded. Looking at Ming Ji's weak appearance, it was indeed impossible for them to continue their journey. Then, Uncle Long took out a house and placed it on the empty space in front of him. Seeing the house that had suddenly appeared, the pale-faced Minga could not help but widen her eyes. What is this? Uncle Long, where did you get this?" Minga asked curiously. "I took it out." Uncle Long played dumb. I know you're the one who took it out. I mean, where did you get this house?" Minga explained. He could tell that Uncle Long was playing dumb. More importantly, they had set off for 3 months, but he had only just seen the house today. It was obvious that Uncle Long had deliberately hidden it from him. Thinking of this, Ming Ji was sad. "Schwerer gave it to me." Uncle Long glanced at Ming Ji's little face and stopped teasing him. The Nether Empress is too biased. Minga was clearly jealous. "Thanks, I have no choice. Who asked me to have a special relationship with Schwerer?" Uncle Long laughed arrogantly, his face full of pride. Hearing this, Minga felt depressed. However, he couldn't deny Uncle Long's words. He also thought that when he met the future Netherworld Empress, he would have to properly curry her favor. Even if he couldn't get a portable house, he could at least get some defensive equipment. With the stimulation from Uncle Long's house, the weak Minga instantly pulled herself together. Uncle Long saw that he was full of energy again, and started to prepare food. But when it came to eating, Ming Ji had no appetite at all. Ice Spirit and the other two ate happily, while Minga could only watch from afar. It was a terrible feeling. Fortunately, 2 days later, Ming Ji finally recovered. They were not far from the city of abandoned ruins. The city of the abandoned ruins is less than 1,000 meters ahead. Ice Soul pointed at the city wall not far away and said, "Yes, let's go in quickly." Ming Ji said impatiently. He had heard that the City of Desolation was similar to the Dead Sea in the Nether prison, so he was very interested in this place. However, in reality, the City of Desolation was not only a place to exile criminals from the divine world. At the same time, many people who could not survive would also come here. In the City of the Abandoned Ruins, survival was the most important problem. Furthermore, there weren't any laws of the God world here, and everything was basically decided with one's fists. There was still a certain difference between the saying that whoever had the biggest fist would be the one to make the call, and that the strong were respected in the immortal realm. In the immortal realm, true experts would not kill innocents indiscriminately and be respected by others. However, in this place, only those with bigger fists had the right to speak. Moreover, killing people was not a crime. In the City of Desolation, many innocent people were killed, and the reason for their deaths was even more strange. It was possible that they had just glanced at someone and died an unnatural death, because the other party was unhappy. Thus, this place could be said to be the most chaotic place in the divine realm. Since it was the most chaotic place, even the people with low strength here would not be good people in the divine world. Thus, this place became the only city that was not bound by the rules of the divine world. Of course, this place also belonged to Wuxia. However, there weren't many deities who knew that this place belonged to Rime. On the surface, this place was also managed by the city lord. After paying a rather expensive entrance fee and getting their identity cards, the four of them strode into the city of abandoned ruins. Although Ice Spirit knew something about the city of abandoned relics, he had never been here before. It was the first time for the other three to be here. The four of them entered the city and walked around the streets curiously like Granny Lou. This place had already formed the scale of a city. Even the streets and shops on the streets were no different from ordinary cities in the divine realm. However, the shops here all belonged to the city lord's mansion. The prices of the things sold in them were so expensive that it left one speechless. Originally, the four of them had planned to find an inn to stay in, but after asking for the price, they were scared away. In the end, they found an open space on the outskirts of the city, and planned to temporarily settle down there. The outskirts of the city were thousands of miles away from the main city, and were rather desolate. However, to a supreme god, this distance was nothing. Moreover, there were also people like them who thought that the things in the main city were expensive. Of course, those who chose to live in the outskirts were basically people with low strength and no backing. Thus, the four of them immediately attracted the attention of others when they appeared. However, the people who were paying attention to them were also observing, because in the eyes of others, these four people didn't seem to be easy to deal with. In the face of such gazes, the four people were quite calm. At the same time, in order to avoid attracting more attention, Uncle Long kept a low profile and didn't take out his house. Instead, he took out the half-finished house that Schwer had given him. Chapter 2905. The City of Abandoned Ruins Tradition 3. These houses were exactly the same as the ones they had built in the Land of Chaos. The defense was needless to say, but they looked quite ordinary and would not attract any attention. However, when Ming Ji, their little friend, saw Uncle Long take out another pile of wood from his storage ring, she couldn't help but widen her eyes. He was really curious about what kind of random things Uncle Long had in his ring. Aside from the dazed Ming Ji, Ice Soul, and Dongfeng Yu automatically started working after Uncle Long took out a pile of wood. They had built countless houses like this, so they were already quite familiar with it. In less than 5 minutes, a wooden 3-story building stood in the open space. All right, let's go in and rest. Uncle Long looked at the small building in front of him with satisfaction and smiled. Good. Like a wooden puppet, Ming Ji was about to enter the building with Uncle Long and the others, but before he could take a step, he heard hurried footsteps behind him. Instantly, Uncle Long and the other three looked at each other and turned around in unison. At this moment, a group of people appeared in front of Uncle Long and the others. The leader of the group was a burly man with a fierce-looking face. He glanced at the small building and then arrogantly glanced at Uncle Long and the others before saying, "You guys built this house?" "Yes, what's wrong?" Uncle Long asked calmly. "What's wrong? Who allowed you to build a house here? Don't you know that the land here has an owner?" The burly man asked at the top of his voice. "I really don't know." Uncle Long blinked and thought to himself, they're here to cause trouble so quickly. However, they were not afraid of trouble, especially in such a chaotic place. "Now you know. Hurry up and move it away." The burly man roared. "What if we don't want to move?" Uncle Long asked again. It was not easy to find this place, but there was no way they could leave. "If you don't want to move, then use money to buy this place." A certain burly man said truthfully. "What if we don't want to buy it?" Uncle Long continued to ask with a smile. "Then get lost." The burly man was extremely angry. He could see that this guy in front of him was definitely doing it on purpose. It was really infuriating. Hearing this, Uncle Long was silent for a moment before saying, "Then get lost." As soon as he finished speaking, Uncle Long raised his leg and kicked the burly man's waist. Then, the burly man's subordinates saw their boss fly away like a kite. "Boss!" The burly man's subordinates cried out in fear as they looked at Uncle Long in horror. Their little hearts suddenly trembled. They had kicked an iron plate, right? "Are you guys going to walk on your own? Or do you want to fly like your boss?" Uncle Long very mindlessly gave the minions two choices. When they heard this, they immediately ran away from this terrifying place and the terrifying people. These small fries are much more tactful than their boss. Uncle Long said with satisfaction as he watched the lackeys leave, "You guys are in big trouble." At this time, an old voice sounded in the ears of the four people. The four of them turned their heads at the same time and saw that the person who spoke was an old man. However, this man's posture was tall and straight, which did not match his old appearance at all. Uncle Long and the others were only surprised for a moment before they regained their calm. Of course, the man noticed their reactions, but he didn't say anything. He just looked at Uncle Long and the others indifferently. "Why do you say that?" Uncle Long asked, pretending to be curious. "Those people have a close relationship with the City Lord's mansion. They are also the City Lord's minions. Moreover, they mainly wanted to collect some protection fees, so it would be fine if he gave them the money. But now, I'm afraid there will be endless trouble." The man sighed and explained, "So you're here to collect protection fees? I thought they were here to cause trouble. Otherwise he wouldn't have moved his feet first." Uncle Long said with a faint smile. It was obvious from his words that he didn't care about this. "Are you new here?" The man smiled and asked, "How did you know?" Uncle Long was a little surprised. He could tell that, in the city of forsaken desolation, any problem that can be solved with money is not a problem. Therefore, the people who choose to live here will usually use money to dismiss the vampires. Only newcomers will be as impulsive as you. The man explained. "Thanks, Uncle Long didn't know how to refute that. He couldn't say that they were here to get information and cause trouble, right? Therefore, he could only silently agree with the other party's evaluation of his impulsiveness. "We are indeed new here. Is there anything else we need to pay attention to?" Ice Spirit asked humbly. "Don't provoke the local tyrants, especially those bastards in the City Lord's mansion." The man only said this and turned to leave. Looking at the man's back, Minga couldn't help but mutter to herself. "This person is so strange. What's so strange about it? There are no good people who can live in the desolate land." Ice Spirit said and went back into the building. After temporarily settling down in the city of abandoned ruins, Uncle Long and the other three split into two groups to scout out the situation. Uncle Long and Ice Spirit formed a team and were in charge of the southeast and southeast of the city of abandoned ruins. Dongfeng Yu and Ming Ji were in charge of the west, north, and the outskirts of the city. In comparison, Dongfeng Yu and Ming Ji's tasks were easier. Uncle Long and Ice Spirit were in charge of the most prosperous city center in the city of abandoned ruins, where the City Lord's mansion was located. Of course, there would also be a lot of trouble here. On the first day, the two of them had encountered many challengers, but none of them could do anything to Uncle Long's powerful strength. However, in the next few days, the provocatively challenge became stronger and stronger, and Uncle Long's fighting spirit was also incited. It had been a long time since he had fought so intensely. Most importantly, he did not have to think too much when he fought with those trash. He could fight however he wanted. At the same time, Uncle Long had also made a name for himself and attracted the attention of some forces in the city of abandoned ruins. After a few days of observation, some factions sent people to test Uncle Long and Ice Soul. However, Uncle Long was always the only one to do so, while Ice Soul only watched from the side. As a result, they had a good grasp of Uncle Long's strength, but Ice Soul was becoming more and more mysterious to them. However, Uncle Long alone was enough for them to extend an olive branch. In the following days, the residence of Uncle Long and the other three people became lively. However, this liveliness was obviously not what they wanted, and it made the four of them depressed. They had come here to scout for information, but now, they had not obtained any useful information. Instead, They had become the target of recruitment for various snobby forces. This fact made them quite speechless. In particular, the force of the burly man who had come to make trouble at the beginning had also sent people, and sent many gifts to apologize for the man's recklessness. Of course, Uncle Long and the others were also very magnanimous and forgave the unlucky burly man. They became fair-weather friends who talked about everything. After getting along with him, Uncle Long deeply felt that this person's IQ was really low. This was because whenever they wanted to ask something, this person would tell them everything he knew and would not hold back. Especially when Uncle Long pretended to be curious and asked about the city lord. The burly man almost told him the color of the city lord's underwear. What a good friend! Uncle Long and the others couldn't help but sigh when they saw such an honest, burly man. At the same time, the man who lived not far away from Uncle Long and the others saw that their residence was bustling every day and realized that he had worried for them for nothing. After living in the abandoned land for nearly a month and finding nothing, Uncle Long and the others decided to go back. Without Shui, they did not have a pillar of support, so they did not dare to investigate the whereabouts of the 3 old phoenixes openly. More importantly, they had tried to find out by beating around the bush, but no one knew where the 3 phoenixes were. They did not even know that the phoenixes had come to the city of forsaken desolation. From this, it could be seen that this city lord had suppressed the news very tightly, and not a single piece of news was leaked out. However, there were still some things that needed to be settled before he returned. Of course, the so-called matter was mainly the recruitment of various forces. Back then, when these forces came to find them, they had said that they would consider it. But now that they were leaving, in order to leave safely, they had to let them know. After inviting all the forces and rejecting their recruitment in person, those forces were obviously not very happy. One had to know that during this period of time, they had given these 4 people a lot of convenient conditions, but they had not been able to feed these 4 ungrateful wolves well. Who would be happy about this? The snobs felt that the other party was clearly looking down on them. Uncle Long knew that they would feel uncomfortable, so he explained, "The reason why we rejected your recruitment is that we plan to leave the city of abandoned ruins." Upon hearing this, all the forces were silent for a quarter of an hour. After that, a representative looked at Uncle Long with a strange expression and said, "It's easy to enter the city of abandoned ruins, but it's hard to get out. If you want to leave, you won't be able to leave this place for at least 10 million years. Upon hearing this, Uncle Long and the other 3 were stunned. What the hell is the meaning of this? Even if he didn't want them to leave, he didn't have to scare them like this. And 10 million years? If he stayed here for tens of millions of years, he was afraid that it would be too late. Seeing that Uncle Long and the others were obviously frightened, the person who spoke continued to explain, "I'm not trying to scare you, but this is a tradition of the city of abandoned ruins. No problem. But if you want to get out, other than paying the expensive exit fee, you have to fight your way out." "What do you mean by beat them out?" Uncle Long asked shamelessly. "Fight your way out of the arena." That person laughed. "I don't recommend you fight in the arena. Your strength is not bad. If you stay and join any of us, you will be treated well. Why do you have to work so hard to fight in the arena? It's not worth it if I die of exhaustion in the arena." The man added. Chapter 2906. Are you guys abandoning your little brother? 1. That's right. Those who choose to fight are all people who want money more than their lives. I see that you are all smart people, so you shouldn't do such a stupid thing. It's better to join us and stay here in peace. Leave, don't even think about it. Since you've come to the city of desolation, you can only live as a citizen of the city of desolation, and die as a ghost of the city of desolation. Another person said. Uncle Long and the other 3 were silent, and they couldn't help but curse in their hearts. Who wanted to be a citizen of the city of abandoned ruins? No one was willing to be a ghost of the city of abandoned ruins. Seeing that the 4 of them were silent, someone continued. You're all pretty strong, so you should choose to join one of us. I can guarantee that none of the powers will mistreat you. Hearing this, Uncle Long and the other 3 were very surprised. Before this, these forces had been quarreling over their ownership. Why did they show signs of allying together now that they heard that they were leaving? This was really too unscientific. It had to be said that Uncle Long and the others were right. In fact, these forces were all closely related to the city lord's mansion. It was reasonable to say that they could join any one of them. However, in order to gain more authority in front of the city lord, it was naturally better to have more and more experts in their own forces. Only then would they be more valued by the city lord. But now that they were leaving, they were naturally unwilling. The chance to leave through the arena was also real, and it was even crueler than what they had said. The reason why they didn't go into details was that they were afraid that the other party wouldn't believe them. More importantly, after they said that, the four of them would definitely go and check if it was true. In this way, they naturally didn't need to explain too clearly. It was better to let the person involved experience it personally. Otherwise, if they said too much, the other party might think that they were just scaring them. After the various forces disclosed the news, they all took their leave, saying that their doors would always be open for the four of them. After they left, Uncle Long and the other three in the living room stared at each other for a long time before Uncle Long spoke first. Do you guys believe what they said? I don't think they have any reason to lie to us, but they might not tell us the truth. After thinking for a while, Mingji told him the truth. What should we do now? We can't possibly be trapped here forever, right? Uncle Long furrowed his brows and said in a speechless manner. If he had known that this would happen, he would have waited for Schwer to come along. If he really couldn't go home, he would really lose all his face. Uncle Long was very worried. I definitely can't be trapped here forever. I miss my son, Ice Spirit said guiltily. The situation was unclear this time, so he had entrusted his son to Mu Li. He hadn't seen his son for such a long time, and he didn't know if his son missed him. He really missed Bing Yao. Uncle Long and the others sympathized with Ice Spirit when they heard him. Although they didn't have a son, they still wanted to have someone else. In the end, the four of them decided to go to the city gate to take a look. There was only one gate in the huge city of abandoned ruins. Let's try to get out first. However, after trying, they were really depressed because when the four of them walked to the city gate as if there was no one else around and intended to leave, they were directly stopped by the guards. After knowing their intentions, the guard laughed in a very lecherous manner. I want to go out. I'm sorry, but you're not allowed to leave the city of desolation. Lord Guard, can't you make an exception? Hearing this, Uncle Long pretended to be weak and asked pitifully. We can't. The guard refused without even thinking. Then how can we get out of the city? I don't believe there's no way out of the city. Seeing that the other party had refused, Ming Ji pretended to be angry. Thanks, there is a way, but no normal person would do that. The guard looked at the four of them and said with a smile that was not a smile. Why don't you tell me? Minga asked, interested. If the four of you want to leave the city, you must first win in all the arenas, and then each of you must pay 10 million top-grade crystals. Once these two conditions are met, you can leave the city safely. The guard said with a smirk. 10 million top-grade crystals? Your sister. This was definitely daylight robbery. The four of them were dumbfounded when they heard the price. Isn't this a little too expensive? Wouldn't the four of them be worth 40 million? It was still a top-grade crystal. Even if they had it, they wouldn't give it to him. Who would be this foolish spendthrift? If you really want to leave the city, you can go home and prepare now. I wish you good luck in advance. Seeing the four of them remain silent, the guard naturally assumed that they had been frightened by him and happily continued to hit them when they were down. Uncle Long and the other three took a deep look at the guard before leaving the city gate with wooden expressions and stiffly walking back. When they arrived at the door, a certain burly man was anxiously waiting at the door. When he saw them return, he quickly flew over and shouted, "My four brothers, you're back. What are you doing here?" Uncle Long couldn't help but ask, "I heard that you brothers want to leave. Are you going to abandon your little brother?" Sob. It wasn't easy for me to have these brothers. How could you leave me? The burly man choked with sobs as he spoke, and his words also made Uncle Long and the other three feel confused. When did they become this guy's brothers? And even abandoned him? So what if he really abandoned them? They weren't this fool's biological father or brother. Woo. You can't escape. The burly man continued while sobbing. Hearing this, Uncle Long was so angry that he kicked the other party's butt. The burly man was not mentally prepared and directly fell flat on his face. However, after he fell, he quickly got up and said with a fawning face, "Beating is affection, scolding is love. Brothers, you won't leave me, right?" Uncle Long didn't know what to say when he saw how he was acting like a lackey. He realized that this fool really needed a beating. Moreover, after being beaten up, he would still eagerly come up to her. If this wasn't being cheap, what was it? "Yes, I will." Uncle Long nodded. "Brother, it's not that easy to leave this place. Why are you all so depressed? Isn't it good to live here? With me protecting you, I won't forget about any good things." The burly man said with a sincere expression, "You'll protect us?" Upon hearing this, Uncle Long sized him up with a faint smile. The burly man's heart suddenly trembled and he quickly changed his words. "No, my brothers are protecting me. However, I've been here longer than you, so I can still give you some advice. This sounds like a human sentence. Now tell me, why can't we leave?" Uncle Long asked. "Because in history, no one who has come to the city of abandoned ruins has ever left successfully. Those who want to leave will usually die." The burly man stammered and said with a trembling voice. Chapter 2907. Are you guys abandoning your little brother? 2. Didn't you say that you can leave after you pay the exit fee and finish the battle? Did you not want us to leave, so you deliberately lied to us that only death would await us? Uncle Long said with a look of disbelief. The burly man felt that he had been injured. How could her brother say that? Although they did not get along well in the beginning, hadn't he already turned over a new leaf? How could her brother still doubt his character? Wu. She had a fragile heart. It was so broken that it couldn't even stick together. "Brother, how would I dare to lie to you? The dead end I was talking about was the arena. In fact, there was only one kind of people who were willing to fight, and that was those who were extremely short of money. On the arena, those people were no different from desperados. There were no rules on the stage. The experts on the arena would definitely die on the arena, so it was quite bloody and terrifying. Big brother, please don't go and fight. We're not short of money, so why should we risk our lives with them? Don't you think so?" After saying this, the burly man simply threw himself at Uncle Long's feet and hugged his thigh. Uncle Long's mouth twitched when he saw this. He kicked the burly man away again, but the burly man quickly crawled back and continued to hug Uncle Long's leg. After repeating this a few times, Uncle Long ran out of patience and shouted, "You're hugging my leg. Do you think I won't kick you back to your hometown? Brother, my dear brother, don't do this to my little brother. I'm just worried about you. I'm telling the truth. If you don't believe me, how about I take you to the arena to see it for yourself?" Seeing that he couldn't convince Uncle Long, the burly man had no choice but to throw out this bait. Hearing this, Uncle Long turned to look at Ice Soul and the other two. Then he nodded and said, "All right, take us there." When they came back from the city gate, they had also wanted to go to the arena to take a look. Unfortunately, no one had introduced them, so they were not allowed to enter the arena. Now that there was a ready-made candidate, Uncle Long would naturally not let it go. Seeing that Uncle Long had agreed, the burly man quickly let go of Uncle Long's thigh. Then he got up and said excitedly, "Brothers, please follow me." Uncle Long and the other three were brought to the entrance of the arena. The burly man only showed a token and was allowed to enter. Of course, this included them, who were slightly brought in. This made the four of them feel a little unbalanced. It seemed that it was impossible to be like a fish in water in the city of abandoned ruins without joining any forces. Entering the arena, the light inside was very narrow. They were directly brought to the second underground floor by the burly man. As soon as they reached the second floor, they could feel the fiery atmosphere in the hall. At this moment, two people were dueling on a high platform in the middle of the hall. One of them was already covered in wounds and was on the verge of death. However, his opponent did not seem to have any intention of stopping and kept punching him. The blood on his body flowed through the small holes on the edge of the platform and into the ground. Uncle Long couldn't help frowning at the bloody scene in front of him. It was just an arena, Did he have to beat the person to death like this? In the audience, many people's hot blood had already been roused, and they were shouting loudly, "Kill him! Kill him!" The atmosphere was so heated and passionate that it was beyond the imagination of Uncle Long and the others. The burly man glanced at Uncle Long and the other three's expressions, and led them to a private room. "This place belongs to my faction. Are you satisfied?" The burly man asked fawningly. "Is this your boss order?" Uncle Long said. Hee. The burly man laughed foolishly and did not answer directly. "Thanks, big brother. We're doing this for your own good. Boss loves talent and really doesn't want you to die in the arena. That's not worth it. Only the lower class will come here to fight. We just need to be spectators. What do you think?" Seeing that Uncle Long and the others didn't say anything, the burly man had to say something. "But we want to leave this place," Uncle Long said, pretending to be in a difficult position. "Why do we have to leave this place?" The burly man didn't understand and looked at Uncle Long and the other three with a resentful expression. They really wanted to abandon him so badly? Why not leave? "Do you want to be trapped here forever?" Uncle Long asked instead of answering. "We're not trapped here. We're here because this place is safe," the burly man said matter-of-factly. Uncle Long and the other three were speechless when they heard that it was safe here. The fool in front of him had been completely brainwashed. How is this place safe? There were battles and deaths every day. To the four of them, this was the place with the least security. Of course, the enemies of the people living here would definitely not be willing to come here for revenge. It was not worth it. "Brother, all the powerful people in the City of Abandoned Ruins have filed a case in the City Lord's mansion. Although we are not the official guards of the City Lord's mansion, we are still supernumerary personnel. So if anyone bullies us, the City Lord's mansion will definitely stand up for us." The burly man saw that Uncle Long and the others didn't seem to believe him, so he continued to expose. "A supernumerary personnel of the City Lord's mansion?" Hearing this, Uncle Long and the other three looked at each other, but no one took the initiative to respond. Seeing this, the burly man could only say, "With the identity of supernumerary personnel, our status in the City of Deserted Ruins will naturally be different from others. There will be more benefits, which is why I strongly recommend you to join a force. It will definitely be beneficial. I will not lie to you." "You're not lying to us? Then who lied to us?" Uncle Long and the others did not know what to say when they saw the burly man acting like a charlatan who was trying to abduct believers. Were they so stupid that they would be proud of being supernumerary personnel of the City Lord's mansion in the City of Forsaken Ruins? How stupid would they be then? However, it was clear that the City Lord's management here was quite successful. How much effort did it take to brainwash the other party so cleanly? This fool was the entire City Lord's brainless fan. After that, Bingpa smiled and said, "We've received too much information today. Let's think about it." After that, the four of them focused on the battle in the ring. At this moment, the battle they had seen earlier had ended. One party had finally lost his breath and was carried down. In the next few matches, there was also a death. Such a result made the four of them immediately pay attention. "Didn't one side lose? Why do you have to kill him?" Minga asked, pretending to be curious. "This is the arena of life and death. The fight will not stop until you see a corpse," the burly man explained. Then he said with a worried look, "Brother, this arena is really dangerous. I really don't want you to fight, so you have to consider it carefully." "We will," Uncle Long promised. After watching the arena, it was already close to evening. The burly man enthusiastically wanted to treat his four brothers to a meal, but they did not have much of an appetite. After politely declining, they directly returned to their residence. Chapter 2908. Are you guys abandoning your little brother? 3. When they got home, the four of them gathered in the living room. No one said a word, and the atmosphere was quite heavy. After a long time, Mingji couldn't stand it anymore and said, "Why don't you say something? What do we do now?" "I don't know. In fact, the strength of those people in the ring is not that high, but I'm afraid that someone might play tricks and divide us into opponents. At that time, wouldn't we have to kill each other?" Uncle Long said after thinking for a while. His words were exactly what the other 3 people were worried about. They were companions, so of course they couldn't attack their companions like the barbarians in the arena. But if they really became opponents, it wouldn't be up to them. This was definitely not something the 4 of them wanted to see. Why don't we wait and see if there's any other way to leave? If that little phoenix can escape from here, there's no reason why the 4 of us can't. Seeing that the atmosphere had become even gloomier, Minga couldn't help but ask. His words also reminded Uncle Long and the other 2. That's right. How did the little phoenix leave? If leaving the City of Desolation was as they had expected, it would be difficult for the little phoenix to leave with its strength. Thinking up to this point, Uncle Dragon hurriedly sent a voice transmission to Muli, who was in Demon City. After informing him of the situation, Uncle Dragon focused on waiting for Muli's reply. After receiving Uncle Long's message, Muli was depressed. Not only did he not get much information, but how did he get involved? He then ordered the White Tiger Great Elder to bring Qing-Er over. Seeing Qing-Er, Muli asked directly, "How did you leave the City of Abandoned Ruins?" "The 3 great ancestors helped me escape, but they didn't manage to escape." Qing-Er replied honestly when she heard Muli's question. "You're saying that they brought you out by force?" Muli narrowed her eyes and asked. "Yes, after that, the city lord's residence was alerted. They told me to leave first and told me to look for Lung Ruoxia if they had any problems. I thought they would be able to meet up with me soon, but I waited for a long time near the City of Abandoned Relics and they didn't come out. I know they must have been caught by the city lord." As Qing-Er spoke, her beautiful phoenix eyes were filled with tears again, making her look extremely pitiful. Unfortunately, Muli was an unromantic person. Seeing the other party cry, not only did he not have any thoughts of pity, but he also felt a little annoyed. He sneered and said, "You're really bold. You left the City of Abandoned Ruins, and you still dare to loiter around. Aren't you afraid of being caught again?" "I'm very careful," Qing-Er explained. "Then how did you offend the city lord of the City of Abandoned Ruins?" Muli asked again. "The city lord's son discovered my identity as a phoenix, and wanted me to be his contract beast. Of course I wouldn't allow it, so I injured him." Qing-Er's voice became softer and softer as she lowered her head, not daring to look at Muli, and then Muli continued to ask. "When the ancestors found out, they decided to let me leave that place. However, it was easy to enter but difficult to leave, so they brought me to force my way in. They didn't come out after sending me away." When Qing-Er said this, her voice couldn't be any softer, but with Muli's hearing, he could still hear it clearly. "Why didn't you say this earlier?" Muli suppressed her anger and asked. Damn it. If the little phoenix had explained the situation to them earlier, would Ming Ji and the other 3 have been trapped in the City of Desolation? Looking at Qing-Er in front of him, Muli's anger rose. "You guys didn't ask me." Qing-Er retorted. "You're not going to tell me if I don't ask? I've told you that we're not familiar with the City of Abandoned Ruins. Why didn't you tell us everything?" Muli gritted his teeth and asked. If they were in the 9 Nether prison, he would have killed Qing-Er long ago. However, this was the immortal realm. Even if he wanted to do something, he could not do it. This made him quite depressed. "It's not too late to explain now. You're not willing to save our ancestor anyway." Hearing this, Qing-Er's anger rose. At this moment, an extremely fast blue light flew to Qing-Er's side, and directly pounced on Qing-Er's body, kicking and biting, and constantly shouting, "You bad woman, return my father! Return my father! Are you crazy? Go away, stinky Qilin!" Qing-Er raised her hand to pull the Qilin away from her, but the ice phoenix bit her arm and refused to let go. Qing-Er felt the pain, and her actions became more rough. Muli saw this and quickly stopped her. "Stop. I won't let you go if you dare to touch a single hair of Bing Yao." "Thanks, did you make a mistake? It's biting me." Hearing this, Qing-Er was so angry that her heart, liver, spleen, lung, and kidney all hurt. Today, she finally knew what it meant to be unreasonable. You can't be like this even if you want to protect your own people, right? Qing-Er felt that she was very innocent, but Muli only coldly glanced at her, then took the somewhat crazy ice phoenix from Qing-Er's body and comforted her in a gentle voice. Bing Yao, be good, your father will be fine. Calm down. Seeing Mu Li speak so gently to the Qilin, Qing'er suddenly felt a little unbalanced. She was the one who was injured and bitten, okay? However, not only did she not get any words of comfort, but she was also despised. At this moment, she deeply felt that the people of Demon City were bullies. No, they were bullies. Seeing through Qing'er's thoughts, Mu Li sneered. It's not wrong for it to bite you, because you're the one who's guilty. After speaking, Mu Li carried the emotionally unstable Bing Yi and wanted to leave, but Qing'er blocked him with a stubborn face and asked, "What do you mean? Speak clearly." Seeing Qing'er's overbearing appearance, the White Tiger Great Elder, who had been watching from the side, broke out in a cold sweat. Although he didn't know what had happened, he guessed that something must have happened when he saw the attitude of the city lord of Muley City and Bing Yao. At this moment, Mu Li turned to look at Qing'er. Make it clear? Because you didn't report it, for powerhouses from Demon City are trapped in the city of forsaken desolation, including Bing Yi's father. Don't you think he should hate you? How is this possible? When did you go to the city of abandoned ruins? Why didn't I know about it? Qing'er's face turned pale when she heard this. Do I dare to let you know? This time they are only there to find out the situation. It is not easy to save people from the city of abandoned ruins, because it is the territory of the fog ice. Mu Li sighed and coldly said, "But how could they be trapped? They shouldn't be weak, right?" Qing'er mumbled in disbelief. He's not weak. He can force his way out, but that won't do. Mu Li said honestly, "Why can't I?" Qing'er didn't understand. Little last Qing'er, that will only alert the enemy. If we alert the Mist Ripple bitch, their lives will be in danger. Without waiting for Mu Li's reply, the White Tiger Great Elder spoke first. What do we do now? Qing'er's face turned pale when she heard this. She was at a loss. Although she really wanted the other party to save the three ancestors, she didn't think that it would alert the enemy. More importantly, she only found out today that the City of Desolation was Wu Luan's territory. Thinking of what Wu Luan had done to the Phoenix clan, she became even more panicked. First Elder White Tiger, please take her away. Mu Li didn't answer Qing'er's question and asked her to leave. No, don't. I don't want to leave. Tell me, what should I do now? From afar, they could still hear Qing'er's uneasy voice. However, Mu Li ignored it and continued to comfort her father. However, no matter how Mu Li tried to explain, Bing Yao remained silent. In the end, Mu Li had no choice but to tell Bing Po about Bing Yao's condition. Bing Po's heart ached when he heard that. He immediately sent a message to Bing Jia. After consoling her for a long time, Bing Yao finally recovered a little. Still worried, Ice Spirit did not forget to remind Mu Li to keep a close eye on Bing Yao in case this little guy ran away from home. It had to be said that a father understood his son very well. After knowing that her father was trapped, Bing Yao did have such thoughts. But Mu Li was watching her closely and guarding her closely, so she didn't even have the chance to escape. After a few unsuccessful attempts, it had no choice but to give up. After knowing that Qing'er had been sent out by the three Phoenix clan's ancestors, Uncle Long and the other three had temporarily given up on the idea of leaving this place, and had decided to take things as they came. After all, they could not copy the three old phoenixes. If their identities were exposed, Demon City would become very dangerous. At the same time, Lung Ruoxia, who was in the chaotic world, was fighting with a piece of ore. This ore wasn't the one that liked to self-destruct, but another unremarkable black stone that seemed easy to bully. Of course, the reason why this stone had provoked her was not because the other party was stubborn. Instead, it was because the other party was too unprincipled and easily melted. As such, it had naturally increased the difficulty of Lung Ruoxia's weapon refinement, especially after she had studied the ore that liked to self-destruct with great difficulty. The appearance of this stone naturally made her previous efforts go to waste. Lung Ruoxia glared at the black stone in her hand. The more she looked at it, the more hatred she felt. She remained silent for a long time, scaring the few professionals so much that they did not even dare to breathe. Schwerer was so scary when she was silent, and now she had been silent for a long time. Even the mistress of the dark world couldn't stand Shui-Er's silent appearance, and went into hiding. Should they also hide? Just as they were lamenting, they suddenly saw a cold and terrifying dagger appear in Shui-Er's hand. Then they saw her holding the dagger and stabbing it into her own snow-white palm. Oh my God! What was he doing? Self-harm. Chapter 2909. I want to rob him. 1. Lung Ruoxia's actions frightened the Grand Elder and the others so much that their hearts were palpitating. It's not a big deal. As for self-mutilating, in the next second, a few of them immediately charged towards Lung Ruoxia. One of them snatched the knife from Lung Ruoxia's hand while the other snatched the stone from her hand. The Armament Guild headquarters Grand Elder glared at Lung Ruoxia with a stern expression and roared. Stinky girl, it's not a big deal. How can you take things so hard? Lung Ruoxia was confused by the Weapon Craftsman Guild's first elder's words. Why did she take things so hard? No, I have to go find the Dark Lord. You really make me worry. Seeing that Lung Ruoxia didn't say anything, the Armament Guild headquarters Grand Elder assumed that Shui-Er was feeling guilty. He then pulled Shui-Er's hand and was about to leave. What is it? At this moment, the demon happened to walk in from outside and asked, Shui-Er wants to self-harm. Lu Feng rushed to say, What? The demon's expression changed when he heard this. He then turned his sharp gaze towards Lung Ruoxia and said, Shui-Er, is what Lu Feng said true? What do you think? Lung Ruoxia rolled her eyes speechlessly. Now she finally understood First Elder and the others' reaction. They thought she was going to hurt herself. Lung Ruoxia was a little confused. Did she look like the kind of person who would hurt herself? The evidence is still here? Seeing that Lung Ruoxia seemed to be trying to deny it, Lu Feng added. He was the one who had gone up to snatch the dagger, and at this moment, the dagger was still in his hands. Shui-Er, what's going on? The demon sighed and asked. He naturally didn't believe that Shui-Er would harm herself, but such a terrifying thing had to be clarified, or else he would feel uneasy. I just wanted to use a knife to cut open the stone to see its internal structure. Who knew that they would have such a rich imagination? Lung Ruoxia was helpless. This black dragon had caused quite a ruckus. When the few professionals present heard that they had misunderstood, their faces immediately turned red. The first elder of the craftsmen's main guild even said weakly, Girl, you can't use a dagger to scare people. They had truly thought that Shui-Er had gone mad from anger because of the ore, and that was why she had taken things too hard. Who knew that it was actually their own imagination that had overdone it? This was too embarrassing. All right. I was wrong. Lung Ruoxia apologized sincerely. Please remove okay. Lu Feng was a little annoyed. It's my fault, okay? Lung Ruoxia obediently changed her words. You're not allowed to have one, all right? Lu Feng roared. You're really hard to serve. Lung Ruoxia glanced at Lu Feng with a half-smile on her face, and he was so scared that he didn't even dare to breathe. In fact, he was just frustrated and depressed after being embarrassed. Otherwise, he would not talk to Shui-Er like this usually. Thanks especially under the Dark Lord's covetous eyes, Lu Feng felt a lot of pressure. Lu Feng, who almost couldn't stand it, dejectedly found an excuse and left. The other professionals did not stay any longer. They did not even find an excuse and left immediately. After the light bulbs had left, the demon did not hesitate to carry Lung Ruoxia in his arms. He asked worriedly, Shui-Er, are you feeling too much pressure? Although the materials used for tool refining were much less than those used for pill refining, the hardness of the materials was not the same. Sometimes it was required to put several materials at the same time. If the control was not good, the materials could be wasted. Up until now, Shui-Er had destroyed quite a few materials, which was why he suspected that Shui-Er's heart ached for the materials. Don't worry about the materials, he said. If you don't have enough, ask Xiaotian. He must have more. It's not that I'm distressed about the material. I really want to see the structure of this material. You see, it's soft and basically turns into a liquid when it's placed in the pill furnace. And this material can't be put in last, so I'm curious what kind of special characteristics it has. And how did Master manage to control this fire back then? Lung Ruoxue explained helplessly as she showed the demon the black stone. The stone was so soft, a little like pudding, but it was tougher than pudding. It wouldn't break even if she used her hands, so she wanted to try it out with a knife. Who knew that before she could even succeed, it would cause a misunderstanding? Hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, the demon also took the black stone and squeezed it. It was just as Schwer had said, soft. He then used his hands to pull the stone. The stone was pulled more than 10 centimeters away, but the stone was still intact. This stone is quite fun. The demon seemed to be addicted to it and kept on pulling. Lung Ruoxue was at a loss for words when she saw him having so much fun. How did this person in front of her suddenly turn into a senior kindergarten student? He was helpless. He was extremely helpless. When the demon was done playing, he returned the stone to her and said, "Schwer, you've been refining pills and weapons for so many years. You must be tired. Why don't we go out and take a walk?" "All right," he said. Thinking that the evildoer was going to kidnap her to spend some alone time with him, Lung Ruoxue agreed without thinking. "Then can you send me into the bracelet?" The demon laughed evilly. "Why? Don't we still need to go to your birthplace?" Lung Ruoxue asked in surprise. "I didn't know Schwer liked my birthplace so much. However, we're not going there this time. We're going back to the divine realm." The demon laughed and teased. "Divine realm? The heaven-earth law won't let you go, right?" Lung Ruoxue was a little worried. "Who cares? When the time comes, I'll just hide my aura and change my appearance." The demon said disapprovingly. In fact, if it wasn't for the obstruction of the laws of heaven and earth, he would have run back to the immortal realm long ago. Now that Schwer was here, he naturally didn't have Gujie anymore. At most, he could just stay in the bracelet. More importantly, the laws of the heaven and earth had been missing for so long. He believed that that fellow must have been trying to hide from them. Who would have thought that he would return to the god world with Schwer? More importantly, he wasn't afraid even if the regulations of the heaven and earth discovered his whereabouts. Now, that fellow's restraint on Schwer was getting weaker and weaker. Last time, he even thought of the stupid way to trick Uncle Long and the others into being hostages. It was clear that he had run out of ideas. It was for these reasons that the demon felt that as long as he moved a little, that guy couldn't do anything to him even if he found out. And his decision to return to the divine realm was also a decision he made after careful consideration. Seeing that Schwer was a little frustrated because of the lack of materials, his heart really ached, so he wanted to take Schwer to relax. If he wanted to relax, the divine realm would definitely be a good place. Most importantly, that was Schwer's home. It had everything Schwer had, and the people she was familiar with. With them around, it would definitely distract Schwer's attention and calm her heart. However, returning to the divine realm also meant that he and Schwer would have to be stuck with countless third wheels. However, for Schwer's sake he could endure. Then let's go back to the divine realm. I've been away from home for so long, I miss home too. Seeing how confident the demon was, Lung Ruoxue naturally had no reason to object. Chapter 29:10. I want to rob him, too. At this moment, the voice of the Armament Guild headquarters Grand Elder was transmitted into the armament refining room. "Schwer, we're all done." Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue raised her head and looked at the evildoer who was smiling widely. She understood what was going on. Lung Ruoxue only stepped out of the refining room after she had placed the demon into her bracelet. At this moment, the first elder of the Craftsmen's Guild and a few others were already waiting outside. Lung Ruoxue moved them into the bracelet as well. Then, she went to the demon's palace next door to take a look and realized that it had long been empty. Lung Ruoxue, who understood the situation, pulled out the sleeping azure and woke it up. Song rubbed his eyes and yawned. "Girl, are you done with your work? The Hotion Chaos divine weapon has not been refined yet. However, let's return to the divine realm first. After all, we've been out for so long." Lung Ruoxue smiled. That's good." Azure nodded. He was also a little homesick. With that, it covered Lung Ruoxue with its divine power and teleported away. When she reached the edge of the land of chaos, Lung Ruoxue soon felt a wave of dizziness. When she opened her eyes again, She had already returned to the divine realm. The moment he arrived in the god world, the demon had Lung Ruoxue move him out. After coming out, the demon had already changed his appearance and his aura had been sealed again. He glared at evildoer and said in a bad mood, "Teleport back to Demon City with Neo. I'm going to sleep." After hearing Song's words, evildoer carefully sized Song up before exclaiming in surprise, "You're already so fat and you're still sleeping? Yes, go to sleep. Go to sleep. It's best if you don't wake up. You bastard. You're the fat one. Your whole family is fat. You're the one who will never wake up." Evildoer's words greatly provoked Azure, causing him to roar like a cat. "If I can't wake up, Schwerer will kiss me awake." The demon was neither angry nor annoyed, and he said with a calm smile, "My ass. If that day really comes, don't even think that the one who will wake you up with a kiss will be Schwerer." Azure almost vomited when he heard evildoer's shameless words, but he still smirked. "What, you want to wake me up with a kiss?" Hearing Song's words, evil demon started teasing him. "Your sister. I won't do that." Song, who was being teased, jumped up and down in anger, almost pouncing on evildoer and scratching his face. Hearing this, the demon seemed to be quite disappointed. "That's really your loss. Song Emo, this guy's shameless skills are gradually rising." As for Lung Ruoxue, who was ignored by the side, when she heard the conversation between the man and the beast, her forehead was filled with black lines. Could these two people not be so childish? He was actually playing with the story of Sleeping Beauty. However, the sleeping appearance of this demon was really quite attractive. At the thought of this, Lung Ruoxue cast a deep glance at the demon. Instantly, the demon was so frightened that his little heart started to tremble. Schwerer wouldn't be jealous, right? Otherwise, why would she look at him with such an evil gaze? The demon was a little uneasy, and he couldn't help but shout in his heart, "Schwerer, I was just joking, don't take it seriously. Schwerer, let's go. We'll return to Demon City and greet Uncle Dragon and the others first. Then we'll travel around the divine realm." This was called cultivating in pleasure. With the integration of intelligence and physical strength, I can guarantee twice the result with half the effort when refining weapons. After a while, the evildoer changed the topic and said proudly, "Thanks." Lung Ruoxue nodded her head and cooperated by allowing the demon to teleport her away. Very quickly, the two of them directly teleported into the Lung family's main residence. After appearing in the garden, Lung Ruoxue saw Mu Li, who was sitting in the garden, staring at her with an extremely strange look. She was speechless and said, "What, you don't recognize me? Why, you're really Lung Ruoxue." Mu Li stuttered. Oh my god. If the woman in front of him was really Lung Ruoxue, then who was the man beside her? Could it be that Lung Ruoxue had an affair and betrayed her master? This truth was too terrifying. Thinking of this possibility, Mu Li's face immediately turned pale. Seeing that Mu Li had said this and seemed to be in shock, Lung Ruoxue did not know what to say. However, she still nodded her head patiently and said, "I'm really Lung Ruoxue. I'm the real deal." "Then who is he?" Seeing that Lung Ruoxue had admitted to it, Mu Li pointed at the evildoer and asked. "He's my man," Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. Your man?" These three words made Mu Li's heart almost go on strike. There were very few women in the world who could be so bold and confident after having a relationship with someone else. Mu Li had never dreamed that Lung Ruoxue would actually dare to admit it, and even say that the ugly man was her man. Was this a heaven-defying rhythm? Woo. His lord definitely doesn't know about this. If he did, how sad would he be? Looking at Lung Ruoxue with a face full of hatred, Mu Li's imagination started to run wild. Lung Ruoxue was confused by Mu Li's sudden look of hatred. She turned to look at the demon and asked, "Mu Li, do you have any opinions about me?" "Right. I'm so against you." Hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, Mu Li was enraged. Lung Ruoxue was a little confused. How had she offended Mu Li? Seeing Lung Ruoxue's blank face and her unrepentant look, Mu Li was so angry that she shouted again, "My lord has become Little Tion's sworn enemy because of you. How could you do something to let him down?" Lung Ruoxue was dumbfounded by Mu Li's roar. When had she done anything to let down the evildoer? She could eat whatever she wanted, but she couldn't say whatever she wanted. This was related to her reputation. When did I ever do anything to let him down? Lung Ruoxue couldn't take it anymore, and asked directly. The demon was also curious about this matter. After looking at Shui, he turned his gaze back to Mu Li. He believed in Shui, just as Shui believed in him. However, Mu Li's reaction didn't seem to be a lie. Otherwise, Mu Li wouldn't be so agitated. In an instant, he felt that it was better to wait and see. You already have another man, and you still say you haven't done anything to let my master down? Seeing that Lung Ruoxue was not going to admit it again, Mu Li was furious. He had brought the evidence back, yet he still dared to deny it. The furious Mu Li turned around and pointed the spear at the demon and roared. I don't care where a wild man like you came from, but this woman belongs to my master. If you still want to live, you'd better get lost now. Otherwise, my lord and I will not let you off. Upon hearing this, Lung Ruoxue and the demon looked at each other. The demon's eyes seemed to be saying, the wild man he's talking about is me? Lung Ruoxue used her eyes to reply, it was you. Now she finally understood why Mu Li's reaction was so intense. He had treated the demon as a wild man. However, shouldn't a subordinate who knows how to protect his master's food be praised? Chapter 29:11. I want to rob him. 3. Lung Ruoxue smiled faintly. Mu Li, I admire your spirit. However, you haven't even found out who this person is and you're already so sure that I have a wild man. This is very unfair to me. The evidence is right here, and you still dare to deny it? Lung Ruoxue, my master is so good to you. You're devoted to him, but how did you treat him? Not only did you have an affair behind his back, you even brought your wild man home. It's fine if I didn't know, but since I've seen it, I can't just let this matter go. I want to represent the Lord to duel with you. Wild man, or I die. Either he dies. Do you dare to accept? The more Mu Li thought about it, the angrier he became. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that his poor master was not worth it. In his heart, there was already a scene of his master being heartbroken after learning about this. These words made Lung Ruoxue's face darken even more. Looking at Mu Li, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but sigh. As expected of a city lord, the level of this upvoting was high. A duel? Wouldn't rest until one of them died? What the hell is this? Lung Ruoxue would never have thought that the first thing she would do after returning would be to face Mu Li's madness. Should she say that Mu Li's reaction was so slow that he couldn't even recognize her master? Or should she say that the demon's disguise was too successful? Of course, the disguise pill that the demon had taken was refined by her. Thinking about it this way, it seemed that she still had the greatest credit. Don't go crazy, it's embarrassing. Seeing Mu Li's words becoming more and more outrageous, Shui's face was filled with helplessness. The demon quickly reprimanded him in case this idiot said something even more outrageous. At that time, if Shui wanted to take revenge on him, he would not plead for him. In the face of a dispute between his dear wife and his subordinates, the evildoer decisively chose to put his beauty over his subordinates. Mu Li saw that the man beside Lung Ruoxue had spoken and was about to shout back at her. However, she suddenly realized that this man's voice sounded like her master's. Lung Ruoxue, is this wild man my master's substitute? He asked after some thought. Why do you say that? Lung Ruoxue blinked her eyes and asked in confusion. When the evildoer heard the word substitute, his face turned dark, as if a storm was about to come. Being treated as a substitute by an idiot still made the evildoer quite unhappy. His voice is too similar to my master's. Mu Li dispelled her doubts and said, Lung Ruoxue, even if you miss my master, there's no need to find a substitute, right? If you do this, what will you do to my master? He's your lord. Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but complain in her heart. However, she would never say such words out loud. Glancing at the evildoer, Lung Ruoxue indicated, your subordinates can settle it themselves. The demon nodded helplessly and looked at Mu Li. Idiot! How could I have such a stupid subordinate like you? What did you just say? Mu Li felt that he was hallucinating and asked in a daze. I said, Why do I have such a stupid subordinate like you? The demon gritted his teeth and roared. Master? Are you the Lord? Muli blinked her eyes and asked in disbelief. Nonsense. You can't even recognize me? The demon was speechless and didn't know what to say. Fortunately, there was a contract between the two of them. Didn't this guy sense it? In fact, Muli really didn't feel it. The moment he saw Lung Ruoxue, he saw her in the arms of an ugly man. He was so angry that he ran away. How could he have thought that the wild man beside Lung Ruoxue was his master? Are you really the Lord? Muli felt the connection between him and the demon, and then exclaimed, My lord, what happened to your face? I've changed my appearance, sighing. The evildoer replied honestly. Woo. Master, why did you change your appearance out of the blue? You even caused me to misunderstand. Muli knew that he was in the wrong, so his voice became softer and softer. In the end he lowered his head. Woo, I made a mistake. He actually did such a stupid thing, he really shouldn't have done it. Muli felt so embarrassed. He really wished there was a hole in the ground for him to crawl into. At this moment, seeing that the truth of the matter had been revealed to the world, Bing Yao, who had been shocked by Muli's anger, finally dared to jump into Lung Ruoxue's arms. She sobbed. Little Xue, save your father. What happened to your father? Lung Ruoxue asked in shock after hearing Bing Yao's words. Bing Pe, Uncle Long, Dongfeng Yu, and Ming Ji are all trapped in the city of abandoned ruins. Seeing that Bing Yao had successfully distracted Lung Ruoxue's attention, Muli hurriedly continued the conversation, and gave Bing Yao a few likes in his heart. Good child, I didn't dote on you for nothing. She knew to help him out. The city of the abandoned? What is this place? Lung Ruoxue asked curiously. You don't know this place either? Muli was astonished. Wasn't Lung Ruoxue from the God world? It sounds familiar, but I can't remember where I've heard it. Lung Ruoxue said honestly. Muli was silent for a moment, then continued. The city of the abandoned ruins is a place that takes in trash. Your two beasts must have been caught by the city lord. The four of them went to find out about the situation, but they didn't know that they were not allowed to leave. Oh. It's not that you're not allowed to leave, but you have to pay an expensive exit fee. Muli deeply felt that this should be the main reason why the four people gave up on the arena. How much do I have to pay? Lung Ruoxue asked. In her heart, she was calculating. Did Uncle Long and the others run out of money? It looked like she and the evildoer had to go and pick her up. 10 million top-grade crystals per person. Muli didn't dare to hide anything. How much? Lung Ruoxue thought that she must have heard wrong. It definitely wasn't 10 million supreme-grade crystal stones. But after Muli repeated it again, she was sure that her hearing was normal. Thanks, Uncle Long. Did they stay willingly? After confirming, Lung Ruoxue said with certainty. How do you know? Muli's eyes widened as she looked at Lung Ruoxue with a fawning expression. Uncle Long and the others definitely won't be willing to spend so much money. Lung Ruoxue said matter-of-factly that, in addition to money, they also need to defeat all the rings before they can leave. That's why they decided to stay there for the time being. Muli explained. Oh, by the way, who are the two beastie that I caught? Knowing that Uncle Long and the rest would be fine, Lung Ruoxue then asked about the two beasties' situation with a peace of mind. At the same time, she was a little puzzled. Her own beastie had basically chosen to go into closed-door cultivation, so why would there be one loitering outside? Feng Miao, Feng Hua, and the sixth elder of the Phoenix clan. Muli obediently reported. It's them. When Lung Ruoxue heard these three people, she immediately recalled where the city of abandoned ruins was. Once, Feng Miao had sent her a voice transmission, saying that the three of them were heading to the city of abandoned ruins to go undercover there. At the same time, they were going to find out the locations of the three kings, so that it would be easier to rescue them. When she found out, she had told them to be careful, but she did not expect something to happen. Is the city of abandoned ruins that powerful? Even 3 hierarch-level beasts were caught? Lung Ruoxue could not figure it out. Logically speaking, Feng Miao and the other two should be extremely careful. Could it be that someone had discovered his identity as a spy? Seeing that Lung Ruoxia's thoughts were running wild, Muli hurriedly reported the cause of the incident. After hearing this, Lung Ruoxia remained silent. Evildoer, let's go to the city of abandoned ruins. Don't tell Qing that I've returned. Lung Ruoxia looked at the demon and said. The last sentence was directed at Muli, little Shueshua. Oh, go too. Bing Yao saw that Lung Ruoxia was about to leave and quickly said. Yes, Muli, you continue to look after the house. With that, Lung Ruoxia gave the demon a look and the two of them disappeared once again. Watching the two of them leave, Muli heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, it was safe. He hoped that when Lung Ruoxia returned, she would forget about the mishap he had caused. Shuer is back? Where is it? At this moment, Dongfang Lin, who had sensed Lung Ruoxia's aura, rushed over. However, he only saw Muli in the garden. She and the Lord went to the city of abandoned ruins. Muli said honestly, so fast. However, with Shuer gone, Big Brother and the others will be able to return safely. Dongfang Lin said in relief. Master is here too? Mingze's voice also sounded. Yes. Muli nodded, then went back to her room with a guilty look. At the same time, Lung Ruoxia and the demon had already walked far away. With the teleportation abilities of Genius and Azure, the team only took a month to reach the desert where Ice Soul and the others had been. Song didn't say anything and released his pressure, scaring the small animals in the desert so much that they didn't dare to come out. Furthermore, the earth dragons in the desert had been almost wiped out by Uncle Long and Dongfang Yu. Hence, Lung Ruoxia and the demon managed to cross the desert without any hindrances. When they arrived at the city of abandoned ruins, they paid the entrance fee that made Lung Ruoxia's heart ache. Then, the two people and one beast headed straight to the place where they had agreed to meet with Uncle Long and the other three. Along the way, Lung Ruoxia had also changed her appearance. She had changed back into the image of a cute little rabbit. Uncle Long and the other three knew about this, so they set their sights on the rabbit. When they finally saw it sunder a white rabbit, the four of them immediately went up to it. Shuer, Uncle Long said in a low voice. Uncle Long. Lung Ruoxia asked carefully. It was as if the two of them had met in secret. When Lung Ruoxia saw this scene, she could not help but laugh to herself. However, when Uncle Long saw Lung Ruoxia, he felt a sense of closeness. Woo. Shuer really came at the right time. Otherwise, they would have been trapped here for a long time. Shuer, you've succeeded in forging a Hotian Chaos Divine artifact. Uncle Long did not expect Shuer to return to the Divine Realm so quickly, so he asked with great curiosity. No, I didn't. Lung Ruoxia replied gloomily. Arg. Then, why did you come back? Uncle Long didn't understand. What if he didn't have enough materials by the time he returned? I came back to relax. Lung Ruoxia replied honestly. Oh, that was true. After working so hard for so long, it's time to rest. Uncle Long nodded in agreement. More importantly, Shuer had returned at the right time. She was their savior. Uncle Long, I want to rob him. Lung Ruoxia nodded and lowered her voice. Chapter 29:12. Depressing win rate. 1. Rob him? Who was this he? Could it be that someone had provoked Shuer? Uncle Long looked at Lung Ruoxia, who seemed to be a little indignant, and started to imagine. I want to rob the city lord of the city of abandoned ruins. Seeing Uncle Long's confused expression, Lung Ruoxia decided to be frank. Hearing this, Uncle Long and the other three fell silent. They suddenly felt sympathy for the city lord. Fine, Shuer had just arrived here, and she was already thinking about that guy. However, since Shuer was here, shouldn't she first discuss with them what to do next? What if the first thing he did was to rob a city lord? Was there anyone more miserable than a certain city lord? After taking a deep breath, Uncle Long had a helpless look on his face as he discussed with Lung Ruoxia. Shuer, can you put aside the robbery for now? Why? Lung Ruoxia blinked her eyes in confusion. Let's get down to business first. Since you're back, we naturally have to rescue those 3 old phoenixes first. Then find a way to return without having to pay the city fee or fight in the arena. Uncle Long reminded him seriously. We can rob them while we look for them. As for the way to return, do we still need to think about it? Lung Ruoxue smiled indifferently. Then she grabbed a small golden snake and curled it into a ball to play with. Ugh. Uncle Long's mouth twitched as he looked at the familiar golden snake that was trying its best to cooperate with Shui. Did this little guy have to be so cooperative? To be honest, he couldn't stand it anymore. It was too embarrassing. However, seeing this little snake, Uncle Long's heart calmed down. That's right. With this little fellow here, they could definitely leave without alerting the enemy. After its master was done playing with it, the little golden snake automatically disguised itself as a shiny golden bracelet and wrapped itself around Lung Ruoxue's wrist. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue's mouth twitched. This color was really too extravagant. Calmly, Lung Ruoxue pulled down her sleeves and said to Uncle Long, "Let's go home." Yes. Uncle Long nodded, and the four of them brought Shui and the demon back to their residence. At the door, a certain burly man was standing guard for them again. Seeing that Uncle Long and the others had returned, the burly man rushed over and shouted, "Brothers, you're back? I really missed you." Upon hearing this, Uncle Long and the other three's faces turned red. Lung Ruoxue and the demon widened their eyes in surprise as if they had heard some kind of fantasy. Song, who had been pretending to sleep, opened his eyes in disbelief when he heard this and exclaimed, "Where did this fool come from? You're the idiot. Your whole family is an idiot." When the burly man heard this, he immediately roared in anger. Your sister. Being scolded by a rabbit, even if Uncle could tolerate it, Aunt could not. When they heard Erwo arguing with Azure, Uncle Long and the other three were so scared that their hearts started to tremble. Oh my God! He had offended the vengeful senior Tsang, and this fellow was going to suffer. However, to the surprise of Uncle Long and the others, Song didn't get angry after being scolded. Instead, he looked at the burly man with interest and nodded. You not bad. Thanks. The burly man was stunned. He didn't understand what the rabbit in front of him meant, but being praised by a rabbit didn't seem to be something to be happy about, right? He was a little depressed. After a moment of silence, the burly man pointed at Song, who was in Lung Ruoxue's arms, and asked, "Brother, did you prepare food for me because you knew I was coming today? Who would dare to eat this food?" This was a man-eating rabbit. It's good enough that you're not eaten by food. Hearing the burly man's words, Uncle Long and the other three secretly sighed in their hearts. At this moment, they heard the burly man continue to guess. Are these two servants you bought? I told you to find a few people to serve me, and you finally listened to me. But why did she buy a man? Can't sleep? Ah, could it be that you big brothers have a strong taste? Heavy-mouthed your sister. Hearing the burly man's nonsense, Uncle Long and the other three were so angry that they almost vomited blood. Your sister? What do you mean you can't sleep? Who's sleeping? At the thought of this, Uncle Long grabbed the burly man and growled. Do you still want to live? If you want to live, then shut your mouth. Uncle, let him speak. You have quite a rich imagination. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue spoke with a half-smile. Shui, his mind is a little muddled. Let's not lower ourselves to his level. Uncle Long said with a helpless smile, but his little heart was nervous. If they angered the mistress of the dark world because of this, they would also suffer the consequences. Sob. Uncle Long was so sad. He wanted to kick this idiot away. How could he have seen that Shui and the mistress of the dark world were servants? It's fine to say servants, but you can't sleep with them? Wasn't he looking for death? Uncle Long gave him a warning look, and only then did the burly man shut his mouth in grievance. However, his curious gaze would still drift towards Lung Ruoxue from time to time. This ugly woman just called Brother Long uncle. Could she be his niece? However, the two of them did not look alike at all. He thought this in his heart, but he obediently didn't say anything. However, even if he didn't say anything, it didn't mean that Azure wouldn't take the initiative to find him. Being treated as food by a certain fool, Song felt quite novel. He jumped out of Lung Ruoxue's arms and reached out a furry little paw, pointing at the burly man. Do you really want to eat me? Weren't rabbits supposed to be eaten? Rabbit meat is delicious. Although the burly man didn't want to answer, the delicious food was in front of him. He couldn't control himself, and even swallowed his saliva. You're right. Azure supported his chin with a small paw and nodded in agreement. When the burly man heard this, he immediately became happy and grabbed one of Tsong's little paws. You agree with me? So you're willing to be eaten by me? I don't want to. Azure shook his head. Why? Rabbits are meant to be eaten. The burly man was quite disappointed. The delicious food was right in front of him, but he couldn't eat it. This was really too cruel. Because in my eyes you are also food. Azure replied calmly. Arg. Are you a man-eating rabbit? With that said, the large man looked at Song with a wary expression and quickly retracted his hand, hiding behind Uncle Long. Uncle Long, who was being used as a shield, was speechless and didn't know what to say. Why did the conversation between the human and the rabbit sound so strange? Can't you be more normal? Uncle Long was surprised. Not only was Song not angry at the burly man's words, but he was also teasing him. Was this normal? Was this normal? This was definitely not the rabbit's character. Could it be that he had been switched out in the land of chaos? Thinking of this possibility, Uncle Long couldn't help but glance at Azure from the corner of his eyes. Chapter 29:13. A depressing win rate too. He looks normal? Song ignored Uncle Long's probing eyes and looked straight at the burly man. He hooked his claws at him and said, Come here. No. I'm not going over. You're a man-eating rabbit, you'll eat me. Seeing this, the burly man clutched Uncle Long's clothes tightly with both hands, as if he was not afraid of death. Of course, the effect would be better if he did not have tears in his eyes. Seeing him like this, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but throw an item over to him and say, Bite! This tool was none other than a small blue handkerchief with flower patterns. After the burly man received it, he obediently bit on one corner of it. In addition to his teary eyes, Lung Ruoxue was satisfied. What a good child. This little appearance was really too cute. Lung Ruoxue gave him a like and magnanimously forgave him for his rudeness. When Uncle Long and the others saw the burly man's appearance, they felt as if a black cloud of crows had flown over their heads. This appearance was really too stimulating, didn't it? The few men, whose mouths were twitching, couldn't stand the fool in front of them anymore. They opened the door and walked in, wanting to be out of sight, out of mind. The burly man who was left behind saw that the situation was not good, and wanted to follow them in, but he was blocked by Tsong. What are you doing? The burly man bit on his small handkerchief, his eyes glistening with tears as he looked at Tsong. Calm down. You're quite interesting and can even entertain us. I want to eat you first. Azure said with a smile. Upon hearing this, the burly man was at a loss. How should he react? Should he thank the other party for showing mercy? However, his mouth was obviously faster than his brain. Before he could think about it, he had already said thank you. After saying that, the burly man himself was stunned. Fuck. He really wanted to slap himself. Why was his mouth so annoying? However, Song was very happy as he listened. He then allowed Lung Ruoxue to carry him into the courtyard. Seeing that he was the only one left, the burly man thought about it, and finally decided not to go in. The man-eating rabbit inside looked dangerous, so it was better to hide. Otherwise, if the man-eating rabbit went crazy and ate him, he would have no place to cry. After making the decision, the burly man immediately turned around and left. Lung Ruoxue entered the courtyard and ran straight to the living room. She handed the ice coffin to Bingpo before sitting down. Then, she looked at Uncle Long and the others with a curious expression and teased. Uncle Long, I didn't expect you to become relatives so soon after you came here. What relative? There's something wrong with his brain. Uncle Long was so angry that he blew his beard and glared. Is there a problem? I think he's quite normal. Oh, I like that little guy. Azure's small mouth grinned as she interrupted. Uncle Long and the others were silent. After a long time, Uncle Long said honestly, his force has a close relationship with the city lord's mansion. What? Upon hearing this, Lung Ruoxue raised her head and looked at Uncle Long. Only then did Uncle Long tell Lung Ruoxue about the information they had gathered during this period of time. Lung Ruoxue didn't know how to react after hearing this. There wasn't much useful information from Uncle Long. Most of them were from different forces. However, they were here to save people and didn't want to interact with the forces here. They wouldn't settle down here either. As such, the information was of little value. Uncle Long also knew that the information they had found out was not of much practical value, so he immediately felt a little embarrassed. The four of them were really not cut out to be spies. Thanks, you've never been to the city lord's mansion? Lung Ruoxue asked after some thought. No, we were afraid of alerting the enemy because Senior Ice Soul said that there should be a clone of the Ripple Mist bitch here. Other than your flame, we can't kill that flower. Uncle Long said gloomily. Since that's the case, let's go to the city lord's mansion tonight. Lung Ruoxue suggested. Yes. Uncle Long and the others nodded. Then they saw Lung Ruoxue release a little silver mouse. The little silver mouse nodded to its master, and then ran out like a wisp of smoke. A few hours later, the little silver mouse came back, panting and covered in sweat. You must be tired. Lung Ruoxue cupped the little silver mouse in her hands, and said with a pained expression, No, I met a bad woman on my way back who wanted to catch me. I almost lost my master. The little silver mouse sobbed with teary eyes. You little fool. Why didn't you send a message to master? Lung Ruoxue gently tapped the little silver mouse's head and reminded it. I forgot. I was only thinking about escaping. The little silver mouse said, somewhat embarrassed. Next time be more careful. If you can't beat an enemy, you must find the master, remember? Lung Ruoxue lectured. Yes. If I can't win, I'll run. If I can't run, I'll look for my master. The little silver mouse promised. It was obvious that it had changed Lung Ruoxue's way of teaching. Lung Ruoxue smiled helplessly before asking. Any news? Master, I've asked my friends about it. It's said that the city lord's mansion is heavily guarded, but the city lord is quite lecherous and likes beautiful men the most. Therefore, if he wanted to enter openly, he could only cater to their interests. Otherwise, we'll have to sneak in. The little silver mouse reported. Do you like handsome men? Lung Ruoxue mumbled to herself as her beautiful eyes scanned Uncle Long and the others. Instantly, Uncle Long and the other three were so scared that their hearts started to tremble again. Shwea. Why was she looking at them? They weren't handsome men now, so they shouldn't be forced to sacrifice their looks. They would definitely resist to the end. Shwea, aren't we going to go in the middle of the night? Uncle Long, who caused Lung Ruoxue's heart to tremble with fear, asked carefully. Yes, we're going tonight. It might not be the case in the future. Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. I'm going to go there again in the future. Uncle Long was speechless. Did this mean that he still had plans for them? Of course. Lung Ruoxue said with certainty. Uncle Long and the others didn't know what to say. Tonight, we'll see what the city lord likes. After that, we'll try to arrange a handsome man for her. Lung Ruoxue continued, ignoring Uncle Long and the rest's gloomy expressions. Uncle Long and the rest did not know what Lung Ruoxue was up to. Was it really a good idea to scare them like this? Very soon, the time for the moon to be dark and the wind to be high had arrived. Uncle Long and the other three, who were supposed to be excited, followed behind Lung Ruoxue and the demon with a heavy heart. They left their residence stealthily. Once they found the city lord's residence, Lung Ruoxue and the others swaggered in. The interior of the city lord's residence in the City of Desolation was rather luxurious. It was comparable to the Divine Lord's residence in the Imperial City. This further strengthened Lung Ruoxue's desire to rob the other party. Such a rich nouveau riche and an enemy. Wasn't he left for her to rob? Chapter 29:14. A depressing win rate 3. If she didn't rob the other party, Lung Ruoxue would feel sorry for the city lord. Under the lead of the little silver mouse, who had already scouted out the city lord's mansion's territory, Lung Ruoxue and the others strolled around the city lord's mansion, as if it was their own backyard. When she found the city lord's main courtyard, Lung Ruoxue walked in without a second thought. Lung Ruoxue and the others heard something from the corner of a room that was lit up. The person in the room was a man. At this moment, he was sitting by the bed with a worried expression. In front of him was a man dressed as a guard, who was trying to persuade him. Lung Ruoxue and the rest listened carefully for a while before they finally understood the truth. It turned out that the guard was persuading the man to submit to the city lord. Such an outcome made Lung Ruoxue and the others speechless. Did the guard still care about this? At this moment, a vigorous roar came from outside the courtyard. The city lord has arrived. When they heard that the city lord was here, Lung Ruoxue and the rest moved to the side to avoid blocking the city lord's path. However, when they saw the city lord walking in the middle of the crowd, they were all confused. Your sister. Why is the city lord a man? And it was a man who looked quite strong and burly. Such a reality seriously refreshed the perception of Lung Ruoxue and the others. They were also somewhat unable to accept this overly avant-garde rhythm. It was obvious that their thinking was outdated. Lung Ruoxue watched as the city lord entered his room. Just as she was hesitating whether she should leave this place, she heard a blood-curdling screech from within the room. Lung Ruoxue and the others looked at each other, then turned their gazes towards the room. At this moment, the man who had been sitting on the bed had become a corpse. The corpse was dry and shriveled, as if it had been sucked dry. As for the city lord, he was using a handkerchief to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth, as if there was no one else around, looking as if he had not had enough. Upon seeing this, Lung Ruoxue felt that something was amiss no matter how she thought about it. She was certain that this city lord was definitely human, but his actions were somewhat similar to the blood cherry blossoms. This was really too abnormal. How did this happen? Lung Ruoxue, who couldn't figure it out, suddenly didn't want to stay here any longer. She gave Uncle Long and the others a look, and they left quietly just like they had come. After leaving the main courtyard, Lung Ruoxue and the rest returned to their residence. In the living room, Uncle Long couldn't help but ask, Schwer, how did we get back so quickly? Don't you feel that there's something wrong with the city lord? Some of his actions are very similar to the blood cherry blossoms. Lung Ruoxue replied honestly. You mean to suck blood? Uncle Long asked. Yes, but he's clearly a human. Lung Ruoxue said with certainty. Could it be that he has practiced some kind of evil technique, so he is also sucking blood? Minga warned. That's impossible. There's no such cultivation technique in the divine realm. Azure opened his eyes slightly. Then is it possible that he's the blood cherry blossom? But he used some special method to hide the aura of the blood cherry blossom on his body, making others mistakenly think that he's a human? Ming Ji said, raising her head to look at Lung Ruoxue. That's not impossible. In short, that city lord is quite suspicious. If possible, we really can't beat the grass and alert the snake. Lung Ruoxue nodded. Schwer, what do we do now? Are we still going to the city lord's mansion? Uncle Long asked after hearing Lung Ruoxue's words. I won't go for now. I'll get Qingju to keep an eye on that place. Oh right, is there an arena here? I'll go have some fun tomorrow. Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. Uncle Long and the others didn't expect Lung Ruoxue to be interested in fighting in the arena. However, since Schwer wanted to go, they had to accompany her. Schwer, that's the arena of life and death. People will die there. At this moment, Dongfangyu reminded him. Oh really? I just heard that the bounty there is very generous and you can even bet on it, so I want to go and make a fortune. Lung Ruoxue said honestly. Her blatant motive made Uncle Long and the others feel ashamed. Look at Schwer, she didn't forget to earn money in the enemy's territory. Compared to Schwer, they were really too unmotivated. With this thought in mind, Uncle Long and the others instantly decided that they would also go to the arena tomorrow and make money. Because they didn't have the intention of going home. They didn't feel any pressure at all. The next day, Lung Ruoxue and the rest had left early in the morning. Thanks, however, they didn't go directly to the arena. Instead, they went to find the burly man and planned to let him lead them in. When the burly man heard that Uncle Long and the others wanted to go to the arena, he thought that they wanted to bring his niece to watch the battle. He immediately agreed to it. Then he carefully glanced at the snow-white rabbit in Lung Ruoxue's arms. His heart trembled, and he led the way in front with fear. After bringing them to their destination, Lung Ruoxue immediately instructed the burly man to bring them to the registration point. The burly man was immediately stunned. Aren't you here to watch the match? Why are you going to the registration point? Swallowing his saliva, the burly man couldn't help but ask. Who said we're here to watch? I want to fight in the arena. Lung Ruoxua rolled her eyes at the other party before speaking. Although you're a little ugly, you're still a woman. Wouldn't it be bad if you were injured? The burly man sized up Lung Ruoxua. The where he was referring to was Lung Ruoxia's face. He deeply felt that the woman in front of him was already so ugly that she let the audience down. If she was disfigured again, how could she get married in the future? Isn't it a life and death ring? If you're killed, who would care where you're hurt? Lung Ruoxua was speechless. She couldn't understand how this fool's brain worked. Why was he thinking so differently from the others? It's good to die, it's all over, and I don't have to suffer. But what if he didn't die? What if he was half dead? More importantly, the arena here was quite brutal. Every day, everyone had to fight at least 100 matches. The winner had to accept challenges from others until no one challenged him. Only then could he rest today. Otherwise, they could only continue fighting. You're a woman. It's better for you to get married and have children. This really isn't a place for women. The burly man persuaded earnestly. Like this? I'm even more interested now that you've finished. Lung Ruoxua said stubbornly. Why are you so stubborn? The burly man was a little annoyed when he saw this. I'm short of money. Lung Ruoxua spat out these 3 words softly. Then, she looked as if she was waiting for the other party to lead the way and did not say anything else. The burly man was almost choked by these 3 words. He could only speechlessly widen his eyes and stare at Lung Ruoxua, as if he was trying to see if she was joking. But no matter how he looked at it, he felt that the other party was serious. Sighing, the burly man said kindly, How much money do you need? I can lend you some. Hearing this, Lung Ruoxua looked at the burly man in surprise. What's up with this guy? I heard that he didn't get along very well with Uncle Long and the others. Why are you doing good things now? I never borrow money from others. After sizing up the burly man for a while, Lung Ruoxua replied only after she almost made the other party's hair stand on end. You must fight? The burly man was helpless. After seeing Lung Ruoxua nod, he said with a serious expression, Life and death don't matter in the arena. Don't regret it. Don't worry, I'll never do anything that I'll regret. Lung Ruoxua promised. In that case, I'll take you to register. Seeing that Uncle Long and the others didn't object, and the other party was insistent, the burly man had to compromise. When he arrived at the registration location, he saw that not only Lung Ruoxua had signed up, but Uncle Long and the others had also signed up. The burly man, who had always reacted slower than others, finally noticed that something was wrong. Was he going to fight in the arena and leave? Thinking that this might be the reason, the burly man suddenly became worried and released a cold aura. However, his temperature was within the range of being ignored by everyone. After they had registered, Lung Ruoxua asked the burly man to bring them to the place to place their bets. After they had registered, their names and abilities were sent to the betting area simultaneously. When they arrived, the betting area already had their win rates. Uncle Long and the others had a win rate of 1-to-1, while Lung Ruoxua and the evildoers' win rate was 1-to-100 million. This was definitely the highest win rate, but it also proved that the organizer didn't think highly of Lung Ruoxua and the demon. As for Uncle Long and the others, they didn't make any profit. Seeing this rate, Uncle Long was the first to question the staff. Why is our winning rate only 1-to-1, while theirs is 1-to-100 million? You bastard! This was blatant discrimination. They were really bullying him. Uncle Long was furious, and the consequences would be severe. Seeing Uncle Long's anger, the staff member asked with a smile, We've tested this win rate before, so there's no problem at all. Moreover, the chances of winning are inversely proportional to one's strength, so you don't have to mind. Don't mind my ass. Uncle Long was even more depressed after hearing what he said. Tested? When did you test it? Why didn't he know about it? During the registration, they were only arranged to enter a dark room, and they came out in less than 2 minutes. Don't tell him that that was the so-called test. Thinking of this, Uncle Long continued to question. How did you test it? How could you so easily determine our strength? Didn't you enter a room together? There's special equipment there, so we can see your strength at a glance. Don't worry, this can't be fake. Sure enough, the staff member confirmed Uncle Long's guess and comforted him. Oh really? Then tell me, what is our strength? Uncle Long asked, not giving up. The 4 of you are all divine emperors, while these 2 are only deities. The staff member said confidently, this is not fake. Uncle Long couldn't help but complain. At the same time, he felt a little regretful. If he had known this would happen, he would have learned from Shui and the others and lowered his strength. But now he couldn't earn any money. Uncle Long felt so sad just thinking about it. The countless crystals seemed to have grown wings and disappeared before his eyes. Chapter 29:15. Do you want to admit defeat? 1. Looking at Lung Ruoxue with hidden bitterness, Uncle Long revealed an aggrieved expression. Lung Ruoxue looked on and could not help but burst out laughing. Uncle, you can place a bet on me, right? After Lung Ruoxue's reminder, Uncle Long suddenly came to his senses. Why was he so silly? Although it was a pity that he could not bet on himself, he could bet on Shui. However, they still felt that they had lost quite a bit of money. However, it was better than nothing. Uncle Long's self-comforting words made him feel a little better. Then, he pointed at Lung Ruoxue and told the staff, I want to place a bet on my niece. To outsiders, the 4 of them had always referred to Lung Ruoxue as their niece. Now this niece of his was called Apple. When he thought of the name that Shui had given him, Uncle Long felt a little confused. The name evildoer was still evildoer. However, with his current face, Uncle Long really didn't know what to say. Sure. How much do you want to bet? The staff member asked with a smile. I want to bet 1 billion top-grade crystals. Uncle Long said without thinking. How much? The staff member thought he had heard wrong and could not help but ask again. 1 billion top-grade crystals. Don't you understand? Uncle Long said loudly with an inscrutable and arrogant expression. Do you have that much money? After the staff member confirmed it, he asked with a trembling heart. Can't you guys do it on credit? If I win, you can deduct 1 billion from my capital. If I lose, you can deduct it from my reward for fighting in the ring. Uncle Long said with a calm face. Anyway, he was planning to get something for nothing. He had no money. This. The staff member almost passed out when he heard Uncle Long's matter-of-fact words. How could this person be so thick-skinned? Although they could buy on credit, no one would buy so much at once. If he really lost, how long would it take? As for whether the other party would win or not, the staff member did not even think about it. He was just a small deity. He was afraid that he would be killed before he could even get out of the ring. Therefore, he did not have to worry about any losses on his side. What the hell is this? Just tell me if it's okay or not. Uncle Long lost his patience when he saw the staff member's cowardice. I can't make that decision, but I want to remind you that if you lose the bet, it will take a long time to return the money. Perhaps for a lifetime. The staff added in his heart. However, he did not dare to say it out loud when he saw Uncle Long's unfriendly expression. What, are you afraid I'll go back on my word? Uncle Long smiled when he heard the staff. No, I just wanted to remind you. The staff member said carefully. Thank you. But I know what I'm doing, so you don't have to worry about me. Money. It's just a worldly possession. If I really lose, what's wrong with a lifetime? I'm not a short-lived person. Uncle Long said with confidence. After the staff member heard this, he couldn't help but think. If money is really a mere worldly possession, why did you place so much bet? Ever since the city of abandoned ruins had wagers, no one had ever dared to bet so much, even if it was on credit. Since you've already decided, please wait a moment. I'll go get the head butler. The staff member said to Uncle Long after complaining to himself. After a while, a short and fat middle-aged man came over with the staff. The middle-aged man sized up Uncle Long and asked calmly, You're the one who's going to bet 1 billion? Yes, I am. Uncle Long nodded with a smile. As long as he thought of the jinxure that was about to fly into his pocket, he would feel happy. Do you understand the risks involved? The middle-aged man asked. What? You guys will go back on your word? Uncle Long's face paled with shock. Thanks. When the middle-aged man heard this, he choked. I'm afraid you'll go back on your word or be beaten to death, okay? Of course we won't go back on our word. After taking a few deep breaths, the middle-aged man decided not to stoop to the level of the idiot in front of him. That's good. I don't have anything to worry about, Uncle Long said, relieved. These words made the middle-aged man depressed again. The middle-aged man realized that the man in front of him seemed to have a different way of thinking. Otherwise, why couldn't she understand what he was trying to say? But looking at the other party's expression, it didn't seem like he did it on purpose. As such, the middle-aged man was a little conflicted. After staring at Uncle Long for a long time, the middle-aged man wanted to tell Uncle Long the rules of the competition again. Uncle Long indicated that he had remembered them and urged, "Can I place my bet now? Don't waste my time. I'm in a hurry to make money." The middle-aged man expressed that he had never seen someone so eager to die. However, he had also heard of the other party's strength, and this kind of person was exactly what they needed the most. You can place your bet now. The middle-aged man looked at the strength of the contestant called Apple and nodded. If only you were like this earlier, you still said so much nonsense. Uncle Long glanced at the middle-aged man and said with a little dissatisfaction. When the middle-aged man heard that, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood again. He could not help but curse in his heart. Fuck. What kind of person was this? It was bad enough that she didn't put him, the head butler, in her eyes at all, but now she even complained that he was talking nonsense? Humph. If it wasn't for the fact that the other party was about to fight and might lose his life, he would have made sure to teach this guy a lesson. However, even though he was angry, the middle-aged man still personally handled the betting procedures for Uncle Long. In order to be formal, the contract between the two parties was also a formal contract recognized by the contract rules. Once one party broke the contract, they would be severely punished by the contract rules. Seeing this contract, Uncle Long smiled in his heart. After settling Uncle Long's betting procedures, the head butler didn't want to see him anymore, and immediately turned to leave. After settling Uncle Long, the staff continued to receive the rest of them. I also want to bet 1 billion top-grade crystals on credit, Ice Spirit said directly when she saw the staff looking at them. Fuck. Another billion? He still had to ask the head butler to come forward. The poor staff member said goodbye to Ice Spirit with a bitter face, and went to get the butler. The head butler, who had just left, almost went crazy when he saw that someone was looking for him again. Are you done? However, since someone was willing to work for them for free, the head butler felt that there was no reason for him to refuse, so he continued to personally handle the betting matters for Ice Spirit. After completing the procedures for the Ice Spirit, the butler walked away angrily. Then, the staff carefully turned to look at Dongfangyu. Seeing this, Dongfangyu smiled and said, "Give me 1 billion top-grade crystals too. Your sister." It was still 1 billion. This time, the staff members were going crazy. When the chief butler heard this news, his face turned green with anger. Chapter 29:16. Do you want to admit defeat? 2. He deeply felt that he had been played. Otherwise, why would he suddenly get 1 billion? Can't you let me catch my breath? Was he trying to tire him to death? However, he was a bastard who didn't want to earn money. Therefore, even though he was very angry, the head butler still ran over to help Dongfangyu with the procedures. After dealing with Dongfangyu, only Lung Ruoxue, the demon, Ming Ji, and the burly man had not placed their bets. The middle-aged man looked at the four of them and asked, "Do you guys want to bet 1 billion too? I haven't decided yet." Lung Ruoxue smiled faintly. "Me too," the demon also said. "I also need to consider." Minga replied, playing along. "I have to consider it even more." The burly man looked at the middle-aged man and said with a smile, "Take your time to think about it." Gritting his teeth, the middle-aged man turned around and left in a huff. After the middle-aged man left, the burly man looked worriedly at the people in front of him and sighed. "So much money, how long will it take you guys to return it? At most, I'll spend a lifetime. Besides, why do you think we can lose?" Uncle Long said unhappily. Brother, the entire arena is controlled by the city lord's mansion. Do you think they'll let you win after betting so much? Avoiding the staff, the burly man whispered in his ear. The contract has already been signed. Do they dare to renege on their debt? Uncle Long blinked his eyes and asked in confusion. They won't dare to renege on their debt, but they can make it so that your niece can't leave the arena. The burly man looked at Lung Ruoxue, who had a blank expression on her face, and was extremely worried. Although he didn't think of himself as a good person, he had always wanted to be on good terms with Uncle Long and the others. In their short interaction, he had even regarded them as his confidants. Now his niece wanted to fight in the ring, but it wouldn't be an easy fight. However, the other party clearly didn't realize the danger. He didn't even know what to say. Moreover, he couldn't make his words too clear. Otherwise, the people of the city lord's mansion wouldn't let him off. Calm down. I have confidence in my niece. Do you want to bet too? Uncle Long patted the burly man's shoulder and asked. Then, I'll play a bit too. The burly man said, giving him face. Come, go and call your chief steward. He also needs to pay 1 billion top-grade crystal stones. Uncle Long pointed at the burly man and said to the staff with a smirk. In an instant, the burly man felt his legs go soft. Sob. Brother, don't be like this. He didn't plan to bet 1 billion. In fact, he could only place a 10 yuan bet at most. However, when he saw Uncle Long's serious expression, he didn't dare to refuse. The staff member turned around gloomily. After a while, the butler ran over again, panting. As soon as he saw them, a middle-aged man shouted angrily. Can you guys stop tormenting people like this? Can't you place all your bets at once? Head butler, of course we have to think carefully about such a large amount. How can we decide so quickly? In fact, we don't feel good about tormenting you like this. Why don't you just wait here and help us with the procedures immediately after we've decided? This way, you won't have to break your legs from running, right? Uncle Long looked at the middle-aged man, who was stomping his feet in anger, and said, My suggestion is good. Thanks. The middle-aged man was so angry at Uncle Long's sophistry that he almost fainted. He couldn't deny that what Uncle Long said made sense, but as the chief steward of the city lord's mansion, how could he wait for them to make a decision like an ordinary staff member? That would be too damaging to his dignity. Therefore, he still couldn't agree to such a thing. The middle-aged man was filled with anger. After he finished the procedures for the burly man, he glared at him and then left. Woo. The head butler is glaring at me. After the other party left, the burly man said with a sad face. What are you afraid of? It's not like you'll lose a piece of meat if you stare. You have to be like a man, you have to stand up. Do you understand? Uncle Long patted the burly man's shoulder with such force that he almost vomited blood. At this time, Minga said with a faint smile. I've already decided. I'm going to place a bet. The staff members had been provoked in a short period of time. He could tell that these people were definitely doing this on purpose. He was deliberately tormenting him and the head butler. But he couldn't ignore the customer's request. So without even asking Ming Ji how much money he wanted to bet, he went to find the butler. Are you guys done? This time, the head butler also flew into a rage and roared. What's wrong? Can't I bet? Minga blinked her eyes innocently and said in a wrong tone. Yes. Hurry up and get off. The head butler almost bit his teeth into pieces as he urged. 1 billion, you know what I mean. Minga laughed in a very lecherous manner. He understood. How could he not understand? After angrily settling the procedures for Ming Ji, the head butler was no longer in a hurry to leave. He glared at Lung Ruoxue and the demon. I'll give you 5 minutes. Hurry up and place your bets. Knowing that this was the old man's limit, Lung Ruoxue and the demon looked at each other with evil smiles. Then Lung Ruoxue helplessly said, Since you're in such a hurry, then place your bets on us. Just like them. Each of you will get 1 billion top-grade crystals. The head butler nodded and quickly went through the procedures before turning around and leaving with a relieved expression. The staff member heaved a sigh of relief. However, at this moment, Uncle Long waved at the staff member and said with a smile, You can bet on multiple people, right? Yes, I am. The staff member looked at the other party with a vigilant look and nodded. Then I'll bet another 1 billion on my niece-in-law. Uncle Long said calmly. He was calm, but the staff could not. Fortunately, Ice Spirit and the others didn't continue to play with each other this time. They expressed that they would do the same. The staff member had no choice but to bite the bullet and go to the head butler for the nth time. After the chief butler arrived, he was unable to vent his anger on Uncle Long and the others. After settling the procedures for the other party with a depressed look, the head butler said ruthlessly, "This is the last time, you're not allowed to place any more bets." "Well, I'm not betting anymore. May I know how long the betting period is?" Uncle Long nodded understandingly before asking. In other words, he was asking how long it would take for them to get the money. The betting period is 1 month. Of course, you can also choose to transfer the bet automatically. This way, there will be no time limit, and you can withdraw the money you won at any time after a month. The head butler explained. "This is a good idea. Let's transfer the money automatically." Uncle Long nodded, and everyone else agreed. In fact, the head butler naturally hoped that they would do the same. This way, these people would naturally suffer. He would definitely get his retribution for tormenting him again and again. Chapter 29:17. Do you want to admit defeat? 3. After finally settling things with Uncle Long and the others, the head butler left with an expression that said he didn't want to see them ever again. "Apple, let's go to the arena and take a look." Seeing that there was nothing much to do, Uncle Long decided to take everyone to the arena. Yes. Lung Ruoxua nodded her head and obediently followed behind Uncle Long with the demon. Since their arena would only officially begin tomorrow, they could only be spectators today. The place they went to was the private room of the force the burly man belonged to. After entering the private room, Lung Ruoxua watched the competition in high spirits, while the burly man looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle with a face full of worry. 1 billion. A debt of 1 billion top-grade crystals. How long would it take to pay it back? It looked like he would have to live frugally in the future, or else he would have to live on air. He glanced at Uncle Long with hidden bitterness. He didn't dare to complain at all, and could only worry in his heart. He then turned his gaze to Lung Ruoxua. He could not understand how this woman called Apple could be so calm. Didn't she know that the people who died in the arena today could be her fate in the future? Of course, Lung Ruoxua didn't know that the burly man was cursing her out of worry. Furthermore, after a few matches, she had more or less understood the rules of the arena. In fact, it wasn't necessary to kill someone in the ring, but the premise was that the other party had to admit defeat before the battle. Otherwise, it would be a fight to the death. From this, it could be seen that the purpose of this was to give everyone the chance to choose their opponent. However, Lung Ruoxua did not think that the city lord of the City of Abandoned Ruins would be so kind. And after a few matches, she didn't find anyone taking the initiative to admit defeat. After asking the burly man, Lung Ruoxua, she found out that the city lord's estate had given them a generous reward. That was why the challengers were unwilling to admit defeat, and held on to a trace of hope. This was a typical case of someone who valued money over their lives. After knowing that they could still admit defeat in the ring, Uncle Long and the other 3 couldn't help but feel a little regretful. They also blamed themselves for not understanding the rules clearly in advance. In addition, the burly man had deliberately misled them, causing them to think that no one could survive in the ring. That was why they didn't dare to participate. After all, they didn't want to kill each other. Later, when Schwerer came, they didn't feel that the rules of the arena were so cruel anymore. Anyway, with Schwerer around, she would definitely not let anything happen to them. Now, since they could admit defeat, they were even less afraid of the other party's underhanded means. With Schwerer around, it would not be easy for the other party to plot against them. The next day, Lung Ruoxua and the rest finally had a chance to go on stage. The opponents for the first round would be decided by drawing lots, and they would go on stage in order. Lung Ruoxia's first opponent was actually a god king. It was said that this god king was quite powerful and had vicious methods. In the many matches that had already taken place, she had yet to lose. As a result, when she drew this person, even the staff in charge of the stage felt some sympathy for her. Ignoring her opponent's sympathetic gaze, Lung Ruoxue calmly waited for her turn. Schwer, my opponent is a divine emperor. At this moment, the demon walked over and said, Really? Did the staff sympathize with you? Lung Ruoxue laughed and teased. No, I didn't. The demon said calmly. But I've heard that there are very few women in the arena, so you're definitely a rare animal. The demon continued. It seems so. However, let all the men here know that women are not to be trifled with. Lung Ruoxue was full of confidence. I support you. But what if we become opponents? If one side admits defeat, we won't be able to get any money. The demon whispered worriedly. Don't worry, we want meat. Lung Ruoxue guaranteed. If it wasn't for this, she wouldn't have encouraged Uncle Long and the others to come and fight. Most importantly, she didn't just want to earn money by fighting in the arena. Other than that, she had another purpose. Of course, she didn't tell the demon and the others about this for the time being. That's good. Let's do our best. The demon laughed. Yes, demon. It's my turn. Wait for my good news. Lung Ruoxue gave the evildoer a hug and walked up the tall stage with elegant steps. A tall man was already waiting in the ring. When the man saw Lung Ruoxue, he first gave her a disdainful look, then used an arrogant expression to say, Why is a woman out here fighting instead of staying at home and giving birth? Why don't men stay at home and give birth? Why are they out here fighting? Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but ask curiously, Damn it, what did you say? The tall man roared. Along with his roar, many people in the audience also jeered. Let's teach this woman a lesson. Let's teach her a lesson. Turning around to look at the jeering crowd, Lung Ruoxue smiled calmly. I said you should stay at home and give birth, not come out to fight. Do you understand now? Woman, you're really looking for death. When the tall man heard this, his anger surged up. He glared at Lung Ruoxue with his eyes that were spitting fire, as if he was looking at a dead person. However, Lung Ruoxue did not care about the other party's fierce gaze. She only said indifferently, Don't worry about whether I'm looking for death or not. I'm asking you, you're going to admit defeat. Admit defeat, your sister. The word admit defeat was an absolute humiliation to the tall man. Especially when this humiliation was given to him by a woman. How could he accept this? Thanks, therefore, in the next moment, he didn't care if the other party was a woman or not and directly attacked. A swift and fierce attack was directed towards Lung Ruoxue's head. However, Lung Ruoxue calmly dodged the attack with a leap. As she dodged the attack, she kicked out. With a bang, the tall man was sent flying by her kick. He smashed onto the stage's railing, then slid to the ground and fainted. This scene instantly silenced the entire audience. Many of the audience members still maintained their previous postures, their mouths half open, and some even forgot to put down their arms. Shocking. It was absolutely shocking. After a long while, the audience finally came back to their senses and reacted to what they had just seen. Is this fake? It was not scientific. How could this be? Such a tall and big god king was actually sent flying by a puny god. How was this possible? Faced with the audience's disbelief, Lung Ruoxue was unbelievably calm. She glanced at the judge, who was also petrified, and asked, Judge, what do you think? The judge, who had regained his senses, listened to Lung Ruoxue's question in a daze. He did not know how to react. Judge. Seeing that the other party was not replying, Lung Ruoxue could only continue asking. The match continues. After thinking for a while, the judge said, he couldn't be blamed for not reacting in time. It was just that this was the first time such a thing had happened in the ring, so he was somewhat at a loss. He's already unconscious. How can we continue? Or did the judges support my unfair victory? Lung Ruoxue asked indifferently. As soon as she said this, the audience had a good impression of her. They didn't know who started it, but they shouted, I can't win without honor. The apple is mighty. The familiar voice made Lung Ruoxue's face darken. At the same time, the evildoer who had not gone on stage yet, and had gone to the private room to watch the competition, glanced at the burly man who was unwilling to be left out, and joined in the jeering. Instantly, the burly man was so scared that he obediently shut his mouth. Sobs. Why are these people so imposing? Even a deity's gaze made him tremble in fear. Although this fact made him lose a lot of face, he was really afraid. Judge, should we respect the opinions of the audience? At this moment, Lung Ruoxue, who was on the stage, suggested to the judge, who was obviously not in his best condition. The judge had been at a loss. This was the first time something like this had happened. Lung Ruoxue saw that the judge couldn't make up her mind at the moment, and helplessly took out a chair from her bracelet. Then, she laid down on it under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Fuck. It can even be done like this? The audience was once again stunned, and their worldview was completely refreshed. However, it was clear that this was not Lung Ruoxue's first time doing this. Hence, her entire set of movements was rather smooth and natural. The judge was even more dumbfounded. Wasn't he in the arena? Why did he lie down? Our match hasn't even officially started, and he's already fainted. I'm really disappointed. Lung Ruoxue looked at the judge, and seemed to be very dissatisfied. Then, she took out a big red apple and ate it indifferently. For a moment, everyone in the audience, including the judge, had the illusion that the other party was not here to fight, but to watch the match. Look at how he's living his life. He's more carefree than the audience. Apple, apple. Seeing that the situation was not good, the judge stuttered. What, you want to eat too? Raising the apple in her hand, Lung Ruoxue looked at the other party with a face full of vigilance. It was as if the other party could snatch it away at any moment. The judge was helpless and sighed. They're still in the middle of a competition. Can't you be more mindful of your image? The referee truly felt that if everyone in the competition was like the apple in front of him, the referee would be furious. I know, but my opponent has fainted. Lung Ruoxue said innocently. How about I change your opponent? Even though the judge wanted Lung Ruoxue to take advantage of her, she was obviously unwilling. As a fair judge, he naturally couldn't instigate Lung Ruoxue to do so in public. Otherwise, if she incurred the wrath of the public, he would have to bear the consequences. Then what about him? Lung Ruoxue pointed at the tall man who had fainted and asked, "Wait for him to wake up before you guys fight." The judge said through gritted teeth, "All right then. You have to be quick. Your sister's time is precious." Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. The judge suppressed his anger and ordered his men to carry away the unconscious tall man. He then immediately changed Lung Ruoxue's opponent. Upon seeing her new opponent, Lung Ruoxue's first words were, "Do you want to admit defeat?" Chapter 29:18. The domineering Lung Ruoxue 1. Lung Ruoxue's second opponent was also a burly man with a burly figure and a fiery temper. He was also a god king. Originally, he didn't want to fight with a woman. Now that he came up, this reckless woman in front of him said this, he was really angry. So without thinking he shouted, "Woman, I should be the one saying that." "Oh really? You should know that the previous one, who had a similar build to you, had already been kicked unconscious by me. Could it be that you want to enjoy the same treatment as him?" Lung Ruoxue smiled and said calmly. However, when a certain man heard this, he became even more furious. What did the other party mean by this? Curse him? Lung Ruoxue felt aggrieved when she saw the other party glaring at her with hatred. She immediately said, "I'm doing this for your own good. I don't need it. Come on. Stop wasting time." The burly man shouted impatiently, then instantly attacked again. Lung Ruoxue blinked her eyes helplessly. Suddenly, a whip appeared in her hand. Although she didn't like this kind of weapon, it seemed to be quite useful in the arena. After her opponent's attack, Lung Ruoxue swung her whip and instantly dispersed her opponent's attack. Such a change caused the intrepid man to be petrified. How could this be possible? A certain man looked at Lung Ruoxue in a daze. He really couldn't figure out how this little deity in front of him had done it. Could it be that the whip was a high-grade divine artifact? With this thought in mind, the man's eyes glowed with greed. He looked at Lung Ruoxue as if she was his prey. According to the rules of the competition, if they defeated their opponent, then the opponent's spoils of war would all belong to them. Hence, at this moment, Lung Ruoxue had become a gold mine in his eyes. His gaze towards Lung Ruoxue had become much more fervent. When Lung Ruoxue saw this, she knew that this man had the intention to kill her. However, she did not want to continue teasing her opponent. Hence, she lashed out at the intrepid man with her whip. As for the man, he could only keep dodging and did not have the chance to attack Lung Ruoxue. The whips were thrown out, and none of them missed. They all hit the man's body, making him so angry that his whole body trembled, and he almost vomited blood and died. What made him even more crazy was that the whips seemed to have eyes. No matter where he dodged, the whips would follow him. But what about himself? He was getting more and more embarrassed. Blood continued to ooze out of the wounds on his body and dripped onto the ground of the arena. After that, the blood flowed down through the small cracks in the arena. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue narrowed her eyes and whipped even harder. As for the audience, they had no idea how to react to the scene before them. It wasn't a one-sided match, but the man didn't have a chance to attack. He could only dodge awkwardly. As for the woman, she strolled around leisurely and at ease. Seeing how relaxed she was, the people present couldn't help but be envious of her. It was unknown how long had passed, but Lung Ruoxue and her opponent remained in this stalemate. She didn't want to kill him, but she didn't give the man a chance to attack either. When she got tired from swinging the whip, she would even sit on the lounge chair and continue swinging it. Seeing her like this, the audience was speechless. The opponent was so excited that he almost went crazy. However, no matter how furious his opponent was, he didn't have a chance to attack. The referee didn't know what to do in such a state. After thinking for a long time, the judge finally said, "Apple. Thanks, what you want to eat again?" Upon hearing this, Lung Ruoxue took out another red apple and held it in her hand as she looked at the judge. However, the whip in her hand did not slow down at all, and was still working hard. Hearing this, the judge's mouth twitched and he said helplessly, "Miss Apple, can you be serious? We're in the middle of a competition. How can you just sit there? The judge means that I should be lying down? Also, you'd better tell me clearly, how am I not serious? If you don't explain it clearly, I'm not done with you." After Lung Ruoxue said those harsh words, she lashed the whip in her hand at the judge. The judge was so frightened that his face turned pale, and he forgot to react. The whip landed on his body. The judge was in pain, and he couldn't help but curse in his heart. This crazy woman. The audience was shocked. They thought to themselves, this woman is really bold. She even dares to hit the judge. Lung Ruoxue's opponent, on the other hand, was dumbfounded. When he saw that the judge had also taken a whip, for some reason, he suddenly felt balanced in his heart. He even came to an important conclusion: the woman in front of him was definitely someone who treated everyone equally. Naturally, Lung Ruoxue was not clear about her opponent's evaluation. After she had lashed the judge once, she seemed to have changed her target and lashed out a few more times. "Apple, he's your opponent. Why are you hitting me?" the judge shouted angrily. "I'm hitting you," Lung Ruoxue thought to herself. However, she put on an innocent look and said, "You said I'm frivolous. This has seriously affected my reputation. So you must be punished. I am the judge, you can't hit me." The judge was so angry that his heart was twitching, and he continued to shout at the top of his voice. He should be taught a lesson for doing something wrong. Who cares who he is? Lung Ruoxue said nonchalantly, her hands not stopping in the slightest. As for Lung Ruoxue's opponent, seeing how she was neither servile nor overbearing, treating the judge's threat like dirt, he simply wanted to give her a thumbs up. What a brave woman. One should know that she was the only one on the stage who dared to publicly whip the adjudicator. Even though the others would have the same thoughts at times, they would not dare to do so. Thus, Lung Ruoxue had become the idol of her opponents. Can I admit defeat now?" the man suddenly said. However, it was as if Lung Ruoxue didn't hear her opponent's words. The whip in her hand continued to lash at the judge's body, causing him to scream nonstop. After a short while, the judge and Lung Ruoxue's opponent were in the same sorry state. At this moment, Lung Ruoxua finally stopped and looked at the judge innocently. My opponent has admitted defeat again. Now, the pitiful judge had just uttered 2 words when he swallowed the words cannot admit defeat under the threat of Lung Ruoxia's indifferent gaze. He believed that as long as he finished speaking, this woman's whip would definitely land on his body again. He was obviously quite frightened, and did not dare to resist Lung Ruoxia's powerful aura. This reality made him rather depressed. In the arena, he was absolutely worthy of his position, and was respected by many contestants. However, in front of this apple his treatment fell to the bottom, which made him quite uncomfortable. What's wrong? Lung Ruoxua raised the whip in her hand with a faint smile as she asked indifferently. You can admit defeat. Under Lung Ruoxia's intense gaze, the judge unwillingly uttered these 2 words. You can leave now. Lung Ruoxua nodded her head in satisfaction as she spoke to her opponent. The opponent nodded and walked down the ring with a hint of depression. Today's incident was definitely the first time in his life, and he might not encounter it again in the future. Chapter 29:19. The domineering Lung Ruoxua too? I'll find you another opponent. After Lung Ruoxia's opponent left, the judge said this with a face full of fear. Then, without waiting for Lung Ruoxua to nod her head in agreement, he had already slipped away. Seeing the judge running away in a sorry state, the audience felt a mix of emotions. The way they looked at Lung Ruoxua was also filled with deep confusion and intense inquiry. At this moment, there was only Lung Ruoxua left on the stage. She ignored everyone's gazes and laid back on the recliner again. When the audience saw her like this, although the corners of their mouths still twitched uncontrollably, they were obviously much calmer than before. At the same time, the burly man in the private room also stared at the ring in a daze and muttered, "Piapple is so powerful." Whether it was the opponent or the judge, they were almost on the verge of collapse from her torture. And for the contestants who walked down the stage alive, other than the winner, the other side was also intact. This was definitely a record-breaking record. What he didn't know was that from now on, as long as Lung Ruoxua was still in the arena, this record would continue to be maintained. When Uncle Long heard this, he could only sigh helplessly. It looks like we won't have a chance to play today. How do you know? The demon asked with a faint smile. With Apple around, we won't even have a chance to play, Uncle Long said gloomily. However, just as he finished speaking, someone came to inform him that it was his turn next. Uncle Long was surprised and expressed that this was impossible. He had yet to exchange blows with his opponent. How could he be allowed to enter the ring now? If he went up now, wouldn't he be fighting with Schwer? He wasn't that stupid. I'm not going. Uncle Long clearly expressed his opinion. The staff member in charge of passing on the message heard this, and the corners of his mouth twitched. He couldn't help but ask, "Why? What do you mean why? It's not my turn yet, so of course I can't just go up like this. Besides, you're asking me, a divine emperor, to fight a deity. Aren't you trying to embarrass me? Besides, shouldn't they draw lots to decide who would play against Apple? I'm not in the same group as Apple, so why should I listen to you? Tell your boss to stop thinking about me. I will definitely not go on stage." Uncle Long's attitude was very firm. Don't tell me you want to be disqualified." The staff member's eyes were wide open as he shouted in disbelief. "Are you threatening me? I'm telling you, I'm not someone who's scared." Uncle Long said fiercely and released a trace of his pressure. Immediately, the legs of the staff member who passed the message went soft, and he almost knelt on the ground. Of course, Uncle Long was only trying to scare the staff member. He quickly retracted his aura. The staff member, on the other hand, was so scared that he ran away before he could even catch his breath. "Uncle Long, you're the one who doesn't fight in the arena." After the staff left, Ming Song couldn't help but tease him. Uncle Long glared at Ming Ji and said, "Now that Apple is in the ring, why should I go? I'm not going to fight her." Right. We can't kill each other." The burly man agreed, but then he was a little worried. But is it really good to offend the city lord's mansion like this? This isn't offending, this is the character of the strong. Don't worry. The city lord will not blame us for such a small matter. Uncle Long patted the burly man's shoulder and promised. I hope so. The burly man was still worried, but he didn't show it. Thanks. At this moment, Lung Ruoxua had been waiting on the stage for a long time. Not only did no one come up, even the judge was nowhere to be seen. She was the only one in the huge arena, and she felt really lonely. After an unknown period of time, Lung Ruoxua finally received her verdict. There was another young man with him. When the young man saw Lung Ruoxua, he smiled and nodded as a form of greeting. Lung Ruoxua nodded her head as well. She then raised the whip in her hand and asked, Do you want to admit defeat? Yes, I admit defeat. The young man nodded. Admitting defeat was the wisest move. He didn't want to be forced to admit defeat like the previous two. In this day and age, people still had to know their own limits. A wise choice. Referee, please change your player. Lung Ruoxua turned to look at the judge with a smile. The judge was a little angry. Fuck. He had finally chosen an opponent for Apple, but who knew that this kid would admit defeat before even saying a few words? This fact made the referee so depressed that he did not know what to say. However, admitting defeat was allowed by the rules, so he couldn't disagree. However, he still gave the young man a warning look and reminded him. After you admit defeat, you can't go on stage for a week. You'd better think it through. I've thought it through. The young man nodded. Compared to losing face, not competing for a week was nothing. With that, he walked straight down the ring. With her opponent gone, Lung Ruoxua could only continue to seek help from the judge. The judge was a little mad. In fact, the reason why he was gone for so long was mainly to discuss with his boss how to arrange an opponent for Apple. They wanted Uncle Apple to fight and the uncle and nephew to kill each other, but the uncle refused. It was obviously against the rules to force the opponent to fight, so they didn't dare to make it public. They could only pretend that nothing had happened. In addition, the competition was divided into 5 groups. Logically, each group should have a chance to go on stage. However, because of Lung Ruoxua, the young lattice competition had been completely disrupted. If this continued, the competition of the other groups would be in a mess as well. The judge was very sad. However, the woman in front of him was obviously stubborn, so the referee had no confidence in convincing her to give up the game. As expected, Lung Ruoxua, who was clear about the judge's thoughts, smiled faintly and urged, Judge, hurry up. I've placed a huge bet on myself, so I must win. Hurry and arrange an opponent for me. I've been waiting so long that I'm about to fall asleep. The judge stared at Lung Ruoxua for a long time. In the end, he could only helplessly go and make arrangements for the manpower. The following opponents went up the stage one by one. However, for some reason, all of them admitted defeat without exception. This made the live audience feel incredulous. How did this happen? Such a thing had never happened before. At this moment, the demon and the others in the private room also received the notice to draw again. After looking at each other, Evildoer and the rest went to draw lots obediently. When they drew lots, they didn't even ask why. As for the results of the drawing, they naturally avoided Lung Ruoxua. After a day of competition, Lung Ruoxua was definitely the most relaxed arena defender. Of course, she was also quite satisfied with the result of winning without a fight. At night, as they sat in the living room, Uncle Long looked at the calm Lung Ruoxua and could not help but ask, Schwer, what's going on today? Why did all those people admit defeat? Chapter 29-20. The Domineering Lung Ruoxua 3. I've asked Azure to warn them, Lung Ruoxua replied calmly. Why? Uncle Long and the others were puzzled and looked at Lung Ruoxua. There's something strange about that arena, it's sucking blood. That's why I want to starve it for a few days. Lung Ruoxua laughed evilly. Sucking blood. Uncle Long and the others were shocked. This was too unexpected. Yes, that arena was set up for the thing below, and I naturally don't want to let that thing succeed. Lung Ruoxua revealed. What's that thing below? Is it the same as the city lord? Uncle Long asked again. If I'm not wrong, our old friend, the blood cherry blossom, should be waiting to eat us down there with its mouth wide open. Lung Ruoxue replied honestly. Uncle Long and the rest trusted Shui Er's judgment. After all, Song and Green Vessel probably knew about this as well. Shui Er, what should we do next? Dong Fengyu asked after a long silence. Just wait. When the blood cherry blossoms die of hunger, they'll have achieved my goal. Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. That fellow feeds on blood. If there's no blood supply, I'm afraid it will go crazy. Uncle Long laughed when he heard Shui Er's plan. Isn't that great? Lung Ruoxue said matter-of-factly, and the few of them laughed in understanding. However, what Lung Ruoxue didn't expect was that after not consuming a large amount of blood for a day, the blood cherry blossom would go crazy. In an underground secret room of the city lord's mansion, the city lord stood in front of a giant red flower with a face full of fear and trepidation. He looked at the other party carefully and fawningly. My lord, calm down. Calm down. I haven't eaten anything for almost a day, and am starving. How am I supposed to calm down? Or are you planning to treat yourself as food for me to eat? The brutal blood cherry blossom flame roared as it swayed its huge petals. My lord, I am your most loyal subordinate. If you eat me, who will find food for you? Hearing this, the city lord's face paled in fright and he hurriedly said, You still have the face to say that you'll find me food? I've been hungry the whole day. You piece of trash, are you trying to starve me to death? I'm telling you, if you don't want to serve me well, just say it. I will report to the Divine Master, and ask him to remove you from your position. Bloodcherry said viciously, My lord, I'm innocent. I've been trying my best to find food for you. How can you doubt my loyalty? What happened today was just an accident. Please believe me, it will never happen again. The city lord promised. Since you've said so, I'll give you another chance. Seeing that she had scared him enough, the blood cherry blossom said magnanimously, then asked, What happened today? Why was there only a little bit of food falling from the arena? It's not even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. There was an accident. When a woman called Apple was guarding the ring, her opponents all admitted defeat, so there was no food. The city lord said honestly, Is that woman very strong? Hearing this, Blood Cherry Blossom could not help but ask. He's not strong. He's just a small deity. The city lord immediately replied. Then why did my food all admit defeat? The Blood Cherry Blossom roared. As she said this, she became angry and agitated again. They don't want to fight with women. The city lord said carefully. This was the reason given to him by everyone who had admitted defeat. What kind of bullshit reason is this? Do you discriminate against women? The Blood Cherry was furious, and she ordered, Go and capture those who have admitted defeat. I want to eat them. My lord, we can't do this. That would be too eye-catching. The city lord stopped him. Although people died every day in the city of abandoned ruins, it would be too conspicuous if too many people died at once and all of them disappeared without a trace. As the city lord, the last thing he wanted to see was to anger the masses, which was not conducive to his rule. No. I'm hungry now. What do you think I should do? Blood Cherry Blossom was going crazy. Couldn't she just let the flower live? It needed nutrients. So much nutrition. 1. I can only send one person to you at most. The city lord said after thinking for a while. He didn't want to offend the Blood Cherry Blossom too much. If the other party tried to make things difficult for him in front of the Divine Master, it would be enough to make him suffer. How can one be enough? Do you know how hungry I am? Blood Cherry Blossom was clearly dissatisfied with the other party's perfunctory reply. My lord, we have to continue developing. If you eat all the people, there will be no one left in the city of abandoned ruins. You will be even more hungry then. The city lord warned. But you can't make me eat only one person, unless the other party is a reverent god. The Blood Cherry Blossom said hatefully. Reverent god? Were reverent god level cultivators that delicious? More importantly, reverent god level cultivators were not easy to catch. Thanks, my lord, I can't catch the supreme divinity. Why don't you have some snacks first? I'll send people to kill the apples tomorrow, and you'll have food again. The city lord suggested after some thought. You're really trash. By the way, are there still no news of the 3 phoenixes? The blood cherry blossom said in disdain, and continued to ask. Not yet, the city lord said honestly. They were so seriously injured, but they still managed to escape. Tell me, what use do you have? The blood cherry blossom roared angrily. When the city lord heard this, he felt extremely aggrieved. He couldn't help but complain in his heart. Back then, when we were dealing with those 3 phoenixes, didn't you also take action? He still didn't catch her, so why was she blaming him now? The grinding hasn't even ended and you want to kill the donkey already? Although he was dissatisfied, the city lord did not dare to voice his complaints. He said, My lord, I've sent someone to find food for you. After saying that, the city lord left gloomily. However, what made him even more depressed was that the guards in the residence had been busy for the whole night, and they had not caught a single person when it was close to dawn. Not only that, but the guards were all seriously injured. The wounds on his body were all claw marks. Looking at the wound, which was obviously caused by a beastie, the city lord was a little confused. Since when did such a powerful beast come to the city of abandoned ruins? Why did he not know about it? Looking at the wounded guards who were on their last breath, he didn't know how to tell the blood cherry blossoms the bad news. After thinking for a moment, he didn't dare to meet the blood cherry blossom. After being starved for an entire day, the blood cherry blossom became even more brutal. After daybreak, Lung Ruoxue and the rest finished their breakfast and headed straight for the arena. After entering the arena, Lung Ruoxue was surprised to find that the person who had admitted defeat yesterday was also present today. Didn't they say that if they admitted defeat, they could only continue to participate in the competition a week later? Did the rules change? The rules had indeed been changed, and Lung Ruoxue's match time had also been pushed back. This had caused Lung Ruoxue, who was supposed to continue being the guard this morning, to be given an unknown time when she would be able to go on stage. Perhaps her chance to go on stage had already been taken away. At the thought of this, Lung Ruoxue immediately raised a protest and requested to continue defending the ring. When the staff member heard this, he felt his head throb. They knew that this apple would not be easy to deal with. Wasn't this openly going against the city lord's mansion? However, Lung Ruoxue clearly didn't care about that. If she couldn't go on stage, how could she starve the blood cherry blossoms? Miss Apple, this is the city lord's mansion's arrangement. Please follow the rules. Helplessly, the staff members carried them out of the city lord's mansion. The rules? Hadn't the rules been set long ago? What reason did he have to change the rules at the last minute? Was this fair to the arena lord? I want to protest. Your city lord's mansion doesn't put us in your eyes at all. Seeing that I'm about to win, you change the rules at will and infringe on my rights and interests. I'm going to file a complaint to the Divine Master's estate. You're disgracing the participants by doing this. Don't you guys agree? Lung Ruoxue's entire body was emitting an icy cold aura as she berated him. After she was done berating him, she looked at the other participants with a look of hatred. Although the other participants shared the same thoughts as Lung Ruoxue, they did not have the guts to criticize the city lord's mansion in public like Lung Ruoxue did. After all, it would be very difficult for them to live in the city of Forsaken Land after offending the city lord's mansion. Furthermore, there was no need for them to go against the city lord's mansion for a woman. Hence, when Lung Ruoxue looked at them, they all lowered their heads in unison. Lung Ruoxue only laughed coldly when she saw this. No wonder these people were kept as food. With their cowardice, they were destined to become food. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue didn't pity them at all. At the same time, Uncle Long and the others, who had received Shui Er's signal, expressed their strong protest. Knowing that they were together, the staff member wanted to cry but had no tears. Not only that, Lung Ruoxue even pushed aside the staff members in front of her and stepped onto the stage calmly. She was going to continue to guard the ring today. She wanted to see who could get her down. At this moment, other than the judge, there were no other participants on the stage. Even though the judge was not the same as yesterday, he could not help but shiver when he saw Lung Ruoxue, who was emitting a cold aura. Sobs. Is this woman really just a god? Why did he feel that the other party's aura was even stronger than that of a reverent god? Judge, you found out the truth. As she stood on the stage, Lung Ruoxia's beautiful eyes surveyed her surroundings. She smiled faintly and said, "Today I'm still the arena lord. Anyone who wants to challenge me can come up." "Miss Apple, come down. You can't do this. This is against the rules." Seeing this, the staff member was so anxious that he was about to cry. "The rules? Emph. Are you talking about the old rules, or the rules that were changed because of me? To tell you the truth, without my permission, no one can change the rules. If there's really a need to change it can only be me." Lung Ruoxia glanced at the staff member who was jumping up and down in anxiety as she spoke loudly in a domineering manner. The staff member had never seen a contestant so disobedient, so overbearing, so troublesome, so he was a little dumbfounded. The live audience was also petrified. Oh my God! What was this situation? Chapter 29-21. The outside world is too dangerous. 1. No one present had expected Lung Ruoxia to be like this. This was simply too shocking, so much so that they were unable to return to their senses for a long time. However, when they came back to their senses, the staff member was in tears, while the live audience could not help but treat Lung Ruoxia as their idol. This woman before them was definitely the first to dare to bully the arena staff in such a manner. At this moment, Lung Ruoxia took out the reclining chair as usual, and laid down leisurely. She looked so relaxed that it made people envious. However, how should he deal with this matter? The woman in the ring was obviously not a good person. At the thought of this, the staff member had a headache and did not know what to do. Helplessly, he could only report this matter to his immediate superior. When the boss heard the staff member's words, he was silent for a long time before saying, "Go to the city lord's mansion and report this to the city lord." "Yes." The staff member turned around and left, leaving Lung Ruoxia on the stage to be ignored. After an unknown period of time, the staff member slowly appeared. With a cold smile, Lung Ruoxia said unhappily, "Are we still fighting today? Hurry up and start. Don't delay me from making money. Isn't it too easy to earn that money?" He didn't even make a move, and he already got his appearance fee. The staff member said, "Miss Apple, please wait a moment." "Well, start immediately. Your work efficiency is so low. I'll give you some training when I have time." Lung Ruoxia was still unhappy. Hearing that Lung Ruoxia wanted to train her, the staff member's mouth twitched. "It's already good enough that you can keep your life later, and you want to train us?" The staff obviously did not think well of Lung Ruoxia, but Lung Ruoxia did not care. She waved the long whip in her hand again. When the staff saw this, he hurriedly said with his heart palpitating, "The match is about to begin." With that, he jumped off the ring. Sop. The woman on the stage is a tiger, a really scary bird. He really didn't want to stay in the ring for even a second longer, or else the one who would lose his little life would probably be him. The judge, who was already trembling and had weak legs, finally stopped being so afraid and ran down the stage. Now, only Lung Ruoxia was left on the stage. Fortunately, Lung Ruoxia did not have to wait long before a middle-aged man came up to her. This middle-aged man was obviously not one of the participants that Lung Ruoxia had seen before. More importantly, the man in front of her had the strength of a divine emperor. At the thought of this, Lung Ruoxia could not help but smile. It seemed like the other party was prepared to kill her. Very good. Lung Ruoxia was satisfied with the other party's vicious aura. However, she still felt that she should be polite before resorting to force, so she still asked, do you want to admit defeat?" "Admit defeat? Hee. I won't admit defeat, I'm here to kill you." The middle-aged man laughed gloomily and shouted, "I see. Then let's start," Lung Ruoxia said with a smile. Then, she stood up and floated in mid-air, before directly lashing out with her long whip. The long whip flickered with sparks as it went straight for the middle-aged man. On the other hand, the middle-aged man unhurriedly got into his formation. It was obvious that he did not care about Lung Ruoxia. When the long whip reached his side, he simply grabbed it. Just as he was about to say something in a pleased manner, he suddenly felt a pain in his arm. A small flame had started burning on his arm. In the next second, The audience watched as the middle-aged man on the stage disappeared from their sight. Thanks W. Where is he? The audience didn't expect the middle-aged man to run away without a fight. Fuck. What the hell is this? He was really a good-for-nothing. Instantly, disdainful voices rose and fell from the crowd. Only Lung Ruoxua knew that the middle-aged man was dead. To put it more accurately, it was evaporated by her little flame. Of course, she did this without anyone knowing, and no one would find out. After the middle-aged man disappeared, the staff member was very puzzled and immediately sent people to look for him. However, after searching the entire arena, they could not find the middle-aged man's whereabouts. Helplessly, they could only report this matter to the city lord. After the city lord found out, his brows furrowed so tightly that they could squash a fly. He couldn't figure out where a living person had gone to. He wasn't in the arena, and he didn't return to the city lord's mansion either. He just disappeared into thin air. This was really too inconceivable. After thinking about it for a long time, the city lord still couldn't figure out what was going on, until the staff reminded him that Apple had been waiting in the ring for a long time, and kept clamoring for them to quickly find someone to challenge. The city lord was angry and depressed, but he still sent out another expert to fight. The previous one was also an expert raised by their city lord's estate. Although he wasn't the strongest, the city lord felt that dealing with a small deity would be a piece of cake. Who knew that that person would disappoint him too much and make him lose face? At this moment, he had already decided that he would punish that person severely when he returned. Unfortunately, what he didn't know was that not only that person, but all the people he had sent would probably not be coming back. At the same time, Lung Ruoxua, who was sitting on the stage with a cold face, was releasing a frosty aura. It was obvious that she was in a bad mood. The audience also knew why she was like this, so they were so nervous that they didn't even dare to breathe. After a long time, "Where are they?" Lung Ruoxua shouted. "Are they all dead? Come out and catch your breath. Little ancestor, what's wrong with you again?" The staff member asked unwillingly. "I have no opponents again. The previous one is missing." Lung Ruoxua said, pretending to be innocent. We're currently looking for one for you, so please be patient." The staff tried to persuade her carefully, afraid that Lung Ruoxua would flip out. But it was a pity that not only was Lung Ruoxua unable to persuade him, she became even angrier and threatened. "I'll give you another 5 minutes. If I don't see anyone playing, I'll smash this place." A battle? There's not even a single challenger. Upon hearing this, the staff members were in a mess. "Little ancestor? It's not that we can't find anyone to challenge you, but the competitors are all unwilling to fight you. If we admit defeat as soon as we step onto the stage, we won't be able to harm you at all, and we're even wasting our time." What a big tone. At this moment, a mocking voice was heard. The staff member looked at it and quickly retreated and hid. The person who spoke was a young man who looked to be in his early 20s. However, from his eyes that seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life, Lung Ruoxua knew that this person was definitely not young. Following that, the young man walked up to the arena and sized Lung Ruoxua up. "Woman, do you want to die? You're the one who's looking for death." Lung Ruoxua smiled faintly. Another cannon fodder of the city lord's mansion. He had a rotten smell on him, which was really annoying. The moment Lung Ruoxua had such a thought, a voice rang out in her head. "Purify him! Purify him!" Instantly, she began to sweat like a waterfall. Needless to say, the one that was so brave must be her life flame that had been restless recently. However, she also had such thoughts. Chapter 29-22. The outside world is too dangerous too. "Woman, you will regret saying such words." Lung Ruoxua's provocation made the young man feel humiliated. Hence he spat out some harsh words. Hearing the other party's words, Lung Ruoxua smiled radiantly and said, "You're not the first one to say that to me, and you won't be the last one either. But the result is that they're all dead, while I'm still alive and kicking. Don't be too pleased with yourself. Today is the day you die." When the young man saw how stubborn Lung Ruoxua was, He was so angry that he almost couldn't speak. I hope it will be as you wish. Lung Ruoxua laughed as she lashed out with her long whip. The long whip that was burning with an insignificant flame happily pounced towards the young man. However, the young man did not catch the whip with his bare hands like the middle-aged man before. Instead, he dodged the whip nimbly, but a flame still managed to reach the man's clothes. When the young man saw this, he hurriedly tried to extinguish the fire. Lung Ruoxua did not take advantage of the situation, and merely stood by the side and watched. Who knew that the originally small flame would grow bigger and bigger? In the end, under everyone's gazes, the young man also disappeared. Did he run away to put out the fire? How unprofessional. The battle had just started. Why did he run away again? The audience automatically imagined this and was deeply dissatisfied. The two matches had just begun, and the challengers all ran off on their own, leaving the ring master on the stage. This was the first time something like this had happened in history. Instantly, Lung Ruoxua became the target of sympathy for many in the audience. They deeply felt that Lung Ruoxua really had it hard. After waiting for so long and finally finding an opponent, this was the result. Of course, Lung Ruoxua had no idea what they were thinking. Otherwise, she would definitely be depressed. When the city lord received the report again, he was so angry that his face turned green. Fuck. Why were they all like this? The city lord was furious, and the consequences were severe. He had already decided that when those two returned, he would definitely punish them severely. Who asked them to retreat without a fight? This was simply disgracing the city lord's mansion. However, even though he was angry, today's battle had not ended yet, so he still had to send people. This time he sent 2 people. He thought that he could kill Apple in one fell swoop, but who knew that he would be the one missing again? Losing 4 subordinates at once, the city lord couldn't help but become suspicious. This matter was simply too strange. That shouldn't be the case. Although his 4 subordinates were only at the divine emperor level, it was still easy to kill a deity. Why did they go missing? The city lord could not figure it out. However, at this moment, he did not realize that everything was Lung Ruoxua's doing. This was because the Lung Ruoxua in his eyes was simply too weak. It was so low that he couldn't bear to look at it. However, it was a fact that they had gone missing. Of course, it was also possible that the 4 of them had fled to avoid punishment. To be honest, as the lord of a city, and the 4 men were the elites in his hands, he really didn't want the latter result. He would rather his 4 subordinates go missing. However, he had no clue at all, so he couldn't make an immediate judgment. The only thing he was clear about was that if he couldn't kill Apple today, the ancestor below would probably be furious again. Because half a day had passed, that person didn't smell any blood at all. He didn't need to think to know that it wasn't peaceful down there. But he couldn't care so much, and he couldn't be blamed for this. Sighing, the city lord could only bitterly continue to send people. The main task today was to kill that Apple. The city lord's idea was wonderful, but the result was disappointing. The people he had sent after that had also disappeared, and none of them had returned. Such a fact simply made the city lord fly into a rage. Thanks as for Lung Ruoxua, after she was done with today's battle, she returned to her residence with the demon. Uncle Long, who didn't have the chance to fight today, sat in the living room and looked at Lung Ruoxua with a bitter expression. Shuer, you're in the limelight today. We've been deprived of our chance to play again. Did I? Blinking her eyes, Lung Ruoxua was very calm. Of course there is. We've been spectators for the whole day. Uncle Long sighed. Hearing the jealousy in Uncle Long's tone, Lung Ruoxua couldn't help but laugh. Uncle Long, I'm doing this for your own good. That thing down there is not easy to deal with. Once I force it out, you'll have the chance to fight. Then what about your man? We've already placed a bet. Uncle Long could not help but ask. Hee. Calm down, you'll still have a chance to appear. Lung Ruoxua was very confident. However, at this moment, the city lord's residence was not peaceful at all. The city lord, who had been hiding from the blood cherry blossom, was unable to avoid it. He was directly dragged into the ground by the enraged blood cherry blossom. The only thing the city lord could do in the face of the enraged blood cherry blossom was to placate it. However, the blood cherry blossom was simply too hungry. No matter how the city lord tried to placate it, it would only shout, "I want to eat. I want to eat. Sir, please wait. I've already sent my subordinates to capture him for you." The city lord continued to placate her, but Blood Cherry Blossom clearly didn't believe him. She immediately roared, "I don't need you, I'll catch it myself." With that, the Blood Cherry Blossom shrunk to the size of a palm and floated out of the secret chamber. Seeing this, the city lord quickly stopped it and said, "My lord, you can't leave this place." He had a terrible headache. If the Blood Cherry Blossom left this place, it wouldn't take long for it to dry up. More importantly, the Blood Cherry Blossom's strength would be greatly reduced once it left this secret chamber. Therefore, for its safety, the city lord absolutely couldn't let it leave. Otherwise, if something really happened, he wouldn't be able to bear the responsibility. However, the Blood Cherry Blossom was famished and couldn't care less. Right now there were only 2 words in its heart: eat, eat. Then, ignoring the city lord's advice and furiously injuring the city lord, the Blood Cherry walked out of the underground secret chamber without a care for anything else. The danger had indeed increased after coming out, but the Blood Sakura believed that no one in the city of abandoned ruins would want to kill it. The most important thing now was to eat. Humans are iron, rice is steel. One less meal would make one famished. In fact, flowers were the same. He also needed to eat. On the way out of the secret chamber, they encountered many guards of the city lord's manor. The Blood Cherry Blossom immediately drooled all over the ground. However, rabbits did not eat the grass near their nests, so it knew that these guards could not be treated as food for it. Suppressing her hunger, the Blood Cherry Blossom floated out of the city lord's mansion. Although it saw many people on the street, the Blood Cherry Blossom was still intelligent. It knew that it had to be careful and secretive when doing bad things and not attract attention in public. Thus, it could only carefully observe those who were alone and plan to wait for the opportunity to devour them in one fell swoop. However, after observing for a long time, it realized that the people were all in groups, leaving it with no way to attack. Immediately, the Blood Cherry Blossom went crazy. How detestable! How detestable! These humans were too detestable. Was he going to force it to hunt small animals outside the city? In fact, it liked human blood the most and was not interested in animals. However, it was obviously unrealistic to catch people to suck their blood, so after thinking about it, it could only move unwillingly to the suburbs. You're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.